beginning of the end for you.
To the sky!
Bestowed upon you the power of the sun.
A mighty sword!
Strike while the iron's hot.
For Camelot! For Avalon!
Let the heavens rain! I am Ragnarok!
Happy Sunday, Smite fans, and welcome back to the Smite Pro League with our first triple header matchup of Phase 1 here in Season 9. My name is J-Mac. I'm going to have Trelly joining me here. We got 3 SPL sets for you guys today, so I'm not starting with our usual SCC that we would come out with. Instead, it's just going to be nothing but the Pro League. J-Mac and Trelly here one more time. As we get things started up here, our first set of the day is going to be the Solar Scarabs up against the Valhalla Valkyries. So we'll get to see the Scarabs for a second time this weekend, and now get our first more so official look here at the Valkyries, not against a former world champion team.
Yeah, I'd say that we finally get to look at what the Valkyries have been cooking up. Obviously, the newest, I would say the newest team, obviously, because the only Warriors were able to qualify back in here, and comprised mostly of rookies. So we're going to see a lot of new stuff here, and finally we get to see them against, obviously not the Leviathans, who have been looking the best so far, I would say. That's not a stretch. So going to be a very exciting matchup here.
And not just the Scarabs and the Valks, we'll also have the Titans and the Dragons facing off for our second match. And then to end out the day, we'll have the Leviathans back here one more time up against the Oni Warriors. So you'll get to have seen every single team that we have here in the league by the end of today. And going into our first matchup here with the Scarabs and the Valkyries, I want to talk a lot about this kind of matchup here between the Hunters, specifically between Stuart, between Wowie. Stuart had a bit of a washy performance yesterday, even coming out through Season 8, had a bit of a rough start. Towards the tail end of Season 8, though, Stuart was really able to step up for his team. The magical ADCs that he was running at that time were so big for him. We're seeing a lot less of these magical ADCs, though, now, and we've definitely developed more into this kind of Medusa, Heimdall, Cernanos kind of a meta right now.
Yeah, I would say right now it's just the Crusher Aussie meta, right? I mean, if you can make use out of this Crusher first item, if you can have a bunch of abilities that proc it, get the attack speed online, that sort of thing, not really benefiting those magical ADCs, those Olerons, those Freyas, things of that nature. It's just not working out quite as well, but still, Stuart was having some great performances on his own right on these physical Hunters, obviously. This was a nice little solo kill on the Panic Cat, just to show you some of the mechanical prowess that this ADC does have to offer.
Yeah, and coming into this team here for the Solar Scarabs last season around, he had some really big shoes to fill. I mean, you're replacing Zapman, who's now the current 3-time here. So it was definitely going to be a rocky start, to say the very least, coming into here. But Stuart's really been able to make some waves with his team. He's really been able to step up his game sense. And from that point on, the Scarabs have really depended on him to be able to be one of these kind of silent carries for his team. And sometimes it's not even silent. Sometimes he is just out there slamming that W key, running down these enemy players.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you want from your ADC, honestly, just be able to sit in the farm, not make too much noise, and then rotate late game when you get those items online. And Stuart is definitely capable of that, as we've been seeing.
And he's going to be, obviously in the duo lane there with Inbound. Inbound's been able to be a great facilitator to allow him to be able to get some of these plays off there, get him through that early stage of the game. That's typically where we've seen a little bit more of the falter of some of these newer Hunters. They come in, they try and figure out, well, how do I get through the early game? What is the way that I can make it through these first 8 to 10 levels? That way, my last 10 or so levels can be a little bit smoother here. So Stuart's got a great team to rally around him.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with Scream in the jungle being able to just make so many waves as well. Kind of gives a little bit of pressure off that duo lane specifically. You don't have to worry about these jungles coming over when they have to watch out what your jungler is doing. So again, Stuart obviously has a nice team around him so that he's able to just farm up and try to get to that late game carry point, because you don't always want to be looking for these early skirmishes on characters that come online in the later stages of the game.
But kind of looking across the way here, Stuart does have some not so rookie talent, but at the same time still kind of coming back here into the SPO. You got Wowie on the other side there for the Valkyries. Him and Gamma will be teaming up over into that duo lane. And Wowie's one that's really been around the scene for such a long time, whether it be at the SPL level, whether it be at that SCC level. And Wowie has a little bit of a different god pool kind of throwing out here. Wowie's not necessarily not playing the top meta Hunters right now, but he's also not kind of, shoehorning himself into not being able to jump up there either. He's really been able to show off a little bit different of a range of God down here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was about to touch on this Cupid pick that he likes to play, and we have been seeing a little bit more Cupid recently, so maybe that will fall into Wowie's favor, because we haven't really seen the Cupid for quite some time, but Wowie was playing it even when it wasn't good, just this style of hunter where you have like this big AoE ability, which, you know, most hunters don't really have that sort of presence. So while he was trying these sort of off-meta picks before it was even a real thing.
Yeah, I mean, between Cupid, Izanami, we were even seeing things like the Charybdis kind of come out here. Wow, he hasn't really had to show a whole lot. He's really been fighting up against some of these other top hunters just within the scene itself. I mean, him versus Snoopy is always a question of which of them is going to kind of get the more favored hunter out here. But just like Stewart, wow, he is able to jump up onto these more meta hunters. Having Gam over there in the dual lane, who is a rookie into the support, going up against Inbound. I think this dual lane is one that we're going to be watching intently throughout the entirety of this matchup.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially right now, just with the meta we're in, obviously everyone is trying to get pressure on that side of the map. I mean, the dual lane just has more farm outright. You have more camps on that side of the map. So if your support, if your ADC are able to get just a small lead and push the other hunter to sit at that tower level, they're going to be starved of a ton of farm right now.
Looking at this Valkyries team kind of holistically here, talking mostly rookies for this team. I mean, this is Benny Q's first time coming up in here. Aquarius and Wowie have some experience jumping in here, but the rest of this team are all rookies jumping here, going up against a now at least first full look over to the Scarabs. But before we go a little bit further into the matchup, we do have a very special interview standing by.
Yeah. Wait, what? No, you're not supposed to. No, you don't come in, Jordan. I come out. Okay. All right. Well, so we're doing this. Okay. Jordan flubbed the intro, but this I was doing a music, and now I'm doing a gorilla interview at like 10 a.m. I think it's a little early for this. There's surely a player out here. Jordan only ever does this when there's a player, and I think I spotted one. We got to catch him before he runs away. Benji of Valhalla Valkyries fame. What do you feel about the allegations coming your way recently?
They're true.
Like all of them?
All of them.
That's concerning. Okay, I was really hoping to to not hear that. How do you feel about this set coming up?
Should be pretty fair.
Pretty free, yeah. So if you're like on a 1 to 10 scale in mid, where would you put yourself?
10.
10 for Benji, and let's just get the direct comparison. Where's Baronic find himself on that scale?
6, 7.
A 6 or a 7 for the Solar Scarabs mid laner. All allegations true towards Benji. Do not check Twitter. That's dangerous.
I think I counted 3 times, Trelly, that he called him Benji when that's Benny Q. Truly unfortunate.
I mean, just at this point, Mifflin's interviews are, you never know what you're going to get.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't know if it was a bit or anything at that point. I don't know if he just genuinely forgot that was Benny and not Benji as far as the name is concerned, or if he was just running with a bit. I never know with Mifflin.
I think that's the truth. You never really know what you're going to get here, and obviously we don't get to see those segments beforehand. But one thing we did get, and we can touch on, is that Benny Q, obviously very confident player, rates himself a 10 out of 10 in the mid lane. It says his opposition, Moronic, is only a 6 or a 7. So that's radiating some confidence here as the new rookie.
Yeah, for sure out here. I mean, Benny Q, we've been talking a lot about him whenever it comes to the SCC and jumping into the SPL. You know, between him and Pagon, we were talking a lot about, you know, the wide god pool that these players have and kind of the stranger god pool out of all of them out here. I mean, the Kabrakens, Chocks, Wukongs, Tsukiyomis, all these kinds of weird things have popped out between these players. So let's jump into picks and bans and see what comes out from these two teams here. Solar Scarabs up against the Valhalla Valkyries in our first set of the day. And it will be the Scarabs over here on the first pick side, or maybe it's Valkyries on it. It's going to be a Kali, though, first ban. Meanwhile, Erlong Shen going to be taken out. No surprise, we've been seeing what Scream is capable of on this Kali, so it's not a surprise we've been seeing a lot of teams really want to target out against this.
Yeah, again, I think pretty much, well, the Gilgamesh does get banned on the other side. I was going to say pretty much whenever you see Scream on the map right now, you're going to want to take away the Erlong and the Gilgamesh respectively, and the Kali is another pick that we'd love to see Scream on. So it looks like they're just going to be trying to shut down this jungle specifically. Obviously, the Scarab's getting a lot of pressure when Scream is on these high-pressure style junglers. He's going to get active early game, and they're trying to shut that down.
Yeah, the joke of being the 80% of the Scarabs thing, that just kind of derives itself from Scream having like 80+% kill participation all last season. So it's no surprise seeing a team want to try and focus out a player like Scream. That's why we're seeing a couple of these bans over his way, the Kali Gilg, and now a Zeus ban. Meanwhile, on the opposite side, it's going to be the Erlong Shen, Archeo, and Kleena all banned away here by the Solar Scarabs, making sure to get a little bit out there. And then a Bastet as a first pick. A god that has kind of jumped up and down in popularity just kind of on a team-by-team basis. We were seeing some games where she goes 7th to 10th pick sometimes, and other teams are prioritizing her as a first pick.
I mean, yeah, just right now, Bastet as a flex pick is just so valuable. You can of course have that sort of pressure in the solo lane if you do choose to have your 1v1 fight potential is pretty solid, and then you can just get your farm, rotate in late game, and do lots of things. But on the other side, as a jungler, Bastet is just going to have all sorts of application when you have that Huntress of Bast, that long-range CC ultimate where you could just chuck it through a wall. If you don't have any ward vision, it's very difficult to dodge, that sort of thing. So Bastet, always going to be a highly coveted pick as long as you don't really know where it's going.
Yeah, and that's kind of the niceness of this flexibility with that god. Even gods like Kleena, there are a couple of other assassins, even like Camazotz, who can kind of throw their hat there as to having a little bit of that ambiguity as to which lane or which spot that you throw them in there. But with the Bastet first pick, it does still leave a lot open on the table here for the Solar Scarabs. The Hunter has always been a top priority for the Solar Scarabs, making sure that Stewart gets something comfortable, making sure that Inbound can find something here like this Yemoja here in game number 1 means that they can at least get this dual lane start off with a fairly strong pickup here. I mean, Yemoja, even with all the nerfs that has come her way, has still seemed to show top priority with a lot of these supports.
It looks like we were right to highlight this duo lane of the Solar Scarabs, trying to get lots of pressure online early on. This Medusa pick is just becoming so powerful right now because of the early pressure that she provides, obviously. You get that Crusher online and pretty much you're able to free clear the wave, especially with a Yemoja. That's just going to provide so much pressure. It looks like Stewart and Inbound are going to be looking to come out swinging here in this duo lane.
It's going to be a Bacchus pickup, and during the the SPL qualifiers, the SCC qualifiers, Bacchus was one of the heaviest priority supports that we saw out here. And then once SPL finally kicked off, nobody really was paying attention to Bacchus, but this is a god that Gamma has really loved going back to. Between him and Wowie over into that duo lane, they've been able to make some very early plays, and it looks like they want to do that here. Bacchus Cernanos going to be locked in. So now we have our first look at an actual matchup here with this 2v2 over in the duo lane.
Yeah, every time we see Medusa locked in, it pretty much just seems if Cernanos is available, it's going to be getting picked up. With the dash that Cernanos has, you can pretty much always try to stop that lacerate. You can dash through, cancel, turn around, that sort of thing. It just seems like right now both of these ADCs are providing so much early clear. You're trying to match that with the Cernanos, right? You know that acid spray and that Crusher is going to be so powerful. So you try to get that Bramble Bast online early, things of that nature. You're trying to just stop that pressure. But looking at Bacchus as well, you see the Belch, the Frenzy Pop early game. You're going to be getting all sorts of pressure as well. So the Valk's not saying we're going to let this duo lane roll over. We're going to draft just as much pressure.
Well, Scarabs will make sure to lock in their jungler, Naja. Going to be the pickup here very early in the draft, grabbing this Naja. Typically it's something you would maybe wait a little bit longer in, because I don't think a whole lot of teams are going to be banning the Naja here, but the Scarabs do put some value in making sure that their jungler can come out here. And now as we get ready to go in towards this ban phase, something that the Valkyries have been doing consistently since their days in the SCC has been giving Benny Q the final pick of the team here. It seems they're going to follow that same exact trend as we jump into the second phase of bans. Cabrakan going to be that first one out here. But if you're over at the Solar Scarabs and you know that Benny is now holding on to that final pick, do you give your 4th pick coming out of this ban? Do you give that over to Baronic, or do you have Baronic get that final pick?
At this point, I mean, given Benny Q's vast god pool, I can't even confidently say this Bastet's not going mid lane, right? I mean, we haven't really seen too much Bastet mid, but that's the sort of energy that Benny Q brings. Sure, it looks like we just say, hey, let's just throw Kirmi or Aquarius on this Bastet and we'll look for a mage or something like that. But at the moment, you really don't know. And it looks like they are going to think the same thing I'm thinking and just say, you know what, we're going to ban the Merlin away because they still need magical damage whether or not this is something of that nature. But yeah, I think getting Baronic on a pick that he feels confident on right here is probably the play they're going to be going for, not wanting to get a counter matchup.
We do have the Tiamat band away alongside that Cabrakan and the Merlin. One more ban over here for the Valhalla Valkyries to make sure that they can potentially keep Baronic down. I mean, that seems to be the name of the game with these last 2 bans that the Valkyries have used, is keeping Baronic on a little bit lower end of a god pick there. Giannis typically was a god that Baronic would go back to at the tail end of last season to make sure he had something comfortable. But there's still the Agni, there's still Thought, there's still plenty of options out there for Baronic. And it's going to be one less here with the Morgan as a final ban.
Yeah, I'm thinking Thoth would be a very solid follow-up to this Windfire Wheels. Obviously,
Face
Stream
the
very
wrath of a
potent on this
sorcerer
Naja pick here.
scorned.
But it looks like Morgan Le Fay is going to be the option. Same sort of style, though, waiting for that ultimate to come down. You're going to have a lot of burst damage at the bottom of that. You want to try to follow up with your jungler as best as possible there. And it looks like Morgan Le Fay is going to provide exactly what the Solar Scarabs need there.
You're going to get a nice little bit of CC and some extra survivability on that god. Valkyries now with their final 2 picks, they're going to need to get either their jungle or solo, depending where this Bastet is going, or as you put the evil in our thoughts, maybe it's a Bastet mid and we've all been bamboozled this entire time through. Currently hovering a Zhang Kui on the side of the Valks, and I'm not going to discount this one. This is a god that BenQ has gone to multiple times in the past. We'll see if that ends up being the one locked in. But as to talk about the other one here, Aquarius isn't really one to be known to run some of these assassins. He's the much more traditional, tried-and-true warrior guardian solo kind of a player.
Yeah, I will say since the Valks did qualify in the SPL, Benny has been going for these traditional mid laners still. Maybe just trying to get the feel out of the league, things of that nature. And the Zhang Kui, going to be a very solid pick, obviously. Great team fight ultimate, solid pressure early lane once you get that card online. So I do like the Zhang Kui here. They have a lot of team fight presence as well with the Intoxicate, obviously the Cerner. So there's going to be a lot of large AoE abilities that the Solar Scarabs are going to try to deal with here. Obviously, their comp more so a single pick comp, looking for this Naja ult, trying to get a pick before the fight, that sort of thing. So looking at the team fight presence, it looks like the Valks have drafted a better 5v5 style draft.
And we're looking over here, though, this Cthulhu versus Bologna matchup into the solo lane. It's something we saw yesterday with the Dragons versus the Scarabs, where on the receiving end, it was Scary D on the Bologna, and he was being chased out every single opportunity that he was going up against Final K, especially in that second game. I mean, there was like a 3-4 level lead at one point that Final K was able to amass here. When it comes down to that match, when it comes to these team fights here, how is this Cthulhu on the side of the Scarabs going to be making that impact against the Valkyries?
It seems like right now Cthulhu is going to make Zhang Kui's life pretty miserable in the early game, at least if you do get that damage online, if you do get a little bit of defense. You really can't do anything, but you're going to have to sit there and eat pretty much the brunt of the damage of Descent into Madness. But then late game, obviously, Zhang's just going to try to get in, maybe even get a blink online, try to get to the back line, and try to ignore that Cthulhu damage. So I would say right now, in the early game, if Scary D is able to just go and sit on top of this Zhang Kui and make his life pretty miserable, that's going to be difficult for him to deal with.
When we talk about this Zhang Kui, it's something that often gets brought up is the relic usage on this god. I know that Aggro is a massive proponent on getting Blink Aegis on this god, but a lot of times we end up seeing Blink kind of as a first relic here. What side of the fence do you sit on when it comes to Zhang Kui and his relics? I mean, is the Blink a core part of the kit, or do you just go with the more safe relics?
I definitely think you need a Blink to use Zhang Kui late game, but right now, starting either Blink or Aegis, I don't think you're going to have a good time right now, especially against this Naja. You're going to be getting focused pretty early, so I would say it's very matchup-oriented, whether you're going to start this Blink and Aegis or even just try to get the beads. I think beads is going to be the safer option here, specifically because you're against a pick like Naja.
When we talk about the duo lane between these two teams, it's all about making sure to get that early pressure out here. You're looking down the barrel of Yamoja and Medusa on the side of the Solar Scarabs here. Where are the Valks going to find their avenue to find some pressure in duo, Trelly?
I'd say right now both of these duo lanes are they both have some solid kill potential here. I mean, with the Bacchus Cernanos, it depends on who clears the wave better at that point, right? You have the Belch, you have the belly flop, as well as the dash from Cernanos, so much early damage. And then on the flip side, Yamoja, not the greatest early presence, but Medusa can carry a little bit of that weight with how solid her clear is. So if it's just clear specifically, I have to give the edge to the Bacchus and the Cernanos lane.
We'll have to see. Is it going to be the newcomers of the Valks, or is it going to be the veterans and the Scarabs taking game one? Let's throw it over to Gormizer and Mifflin to bring us game number one.
We finally get to see the Valkyries kick things off in Season 9 SPL. They had a set in the kickoffs up against the Leviathans. Maybe not the easiest team to try and take on for your technical first set of the SPL. So this one, a little more interesting. Knocked down 2-0 yesterday were the Scarabs by the Dragons. So there's a lot of, I want to say, intrigue as to how this set could go.
Yeah, I'm really curious. I think the Solar Scarabs really want to be able to prove themselves, and this is going to be a great proving ground for them, considering the Valhalla Valkyries are brand new to the league. They're also not all playing on LAN right now, so some significant advantages over towards the Solar Scarabs. But even in saying that, I think the Valhalla Valkyries, previously the Winter Dogs, for those of you that have been following the SEC very closely over the last year, are a team that have got a decent matchup, like a what is it called? In Pokemon, like what is that? The fire versus water.
Yeah, where you
like an elemental matchup.
Yeah, there's like a good name for it, and I genuinely am blanking.
I'm blanking. It's so early in the morning, but when I say that,
too early for SPL.
When I say that, I mean that the Valhalla Valkyries style of play is one that is very reminiscent of the Leviathans in that they very much like to play around their 5-on-5 engagement. They really like playing through mid. And I think the Solar Scarabs are at their best when they're going for a pick style composition, which is reflected in the P's and B's already. The Valhalla Valkyries, if they could, would just go to the 20-minute mark right now in a dead even state and try and take a 5-on-5. Whereas the Solar Scarabs, now's the time for them to play, and I'd argue they'd have a very hard time to make plays unless it's Scream on this Naja. He's really got to be the proactive component for this team.
I did apologize to the Valkyries, this new squad, because I told them outright that I am keeping franchise stats. So,
unlucky.
Unfortunately, they inherited a 20 loss streak, which has gone up to 21 just because their last set was not a dub for them. But the last time that a Valkyries team won a set, it was up against the Scarabs.
Okay.
And that was phase 2, somewhere in the middle last year. So something I think that is going to be, maybe redeemed here. We'll get to see.
Can you imagine the Valhalla Valkyries lose this set and then Raph gets on Twitter like, yo, what the heck? You guys are ruining my legacy. The one team we could take out consistently. Speaking of taking out, Cure Me might be in some trouble here. Is forced to use the leap defensively. Holds on to the beads though. That Sash, not enough CC at this point in the game with that much threat.
It is this conversation though, because Scream Naja is kind of nuts, right?
Yes,
it's
sir.
not something we get to see a lot. But when Bastet's taken away from you, the Kali was banned, Gilgamesh was banned. They went off the checklist of how do we just stifle Scream, and he's still got a really, really solid Scream pick. We'll see if he can do anything with it. Good root, good damage. There's the bludgeon. Aquarius needs one more auto, but Scream, he just walks away, and he's able to get under the tier 2. Now Aquarius, if he has that Scourge cooldown, maybe he turns around. No, Scary D playing body blocker, gonna lose the blue buff for it. But they're happy to keep First Blood out of the hands of the Valkyries.
And this is a matchup we've seen a lot in the solo lane recently, this Cthulhu versus Bellona, and generally the Cthulhu has been getting the better end of it as inbound. Forced to use the beads defensively, Gamma able to force that out himself, which is surprising, right? You'd really associate that aggressive styling, that ability to bully in lane with the Bellona pick. She's got better sustain in lane, has it built into the kit, more consistent damage output, cleave auto attacks to deal with these waves early on. And the only poke tool, legitimately, that Cthulhu is going to have is the dash, I suppose, or maybe even the one. But generally, you have to use at least one of those abilities to finish off the wave because the Mire doesn't really full clear, at least for the first 6 to 7 levels until you get a couple items under your belt, which is why I had been surprised that the matchup had generally been going Cthulhu's way. But now the Valhalla Valkyries, with a little bit of emphasis towards the solo lane, are able to facilitate Aquarius so well that he's got a level lead, already has the ultimate available. First or second round of blue buffs invaded. I think the Valkyries can maintain that pressure, make sure that this Cthulhu, once he does start rotating these team fights, is at least rotating from behind.
I'm a little surprised that we haven't seen it maybe manifest elsewhere as well. It feels like Wowie and Gamma have been at the tower line for a long time. And so, keeping, again, good control. They managed to knock the beads off of inbound, so maybe an opening for a jungle gank or just for a Bacchus gank on his own lane. Now it's going to be mid-camps with Gamma. And that is not just a new PBS show. It's just literally what's happening here. It's mid-camps with Gamma. He's going to be able to outtake him for mini Q. I thought there was going to be a bigger fight. Mifflin, Scream, and Baronic kind of stepped up, but they're not willing to go too far.
Yeah, concerned about Box's early game potential, I suppose, but Scream and Baronic were there first, but we're not willing to take any sort of engagement. And not wanting to fight a Zhang Kui at this portion of the game makes sense to me, especially with Morgan Le Fay being just generally weaker right now. Her damage output much lower, much less consistent. Her CC a little bit more conditional, and that Dragonflight is generally a melee tool. And you don't want to be standing in melee range against a Zhang Kui. So the Solar Scarabs allow that one to slide away, but in doing so, lose the neutral farm. They get invaded yet again on the solo side, and the Valhalla Valkyries are slowly, methodically building up a lead.
That's honestly worthwhile for him, right? At this point, if you get First Blood for the Scarabs, that does kind of reset where this gold is, but the Valkyries get First Blood. All of a sudden, that lead becomes a little more comfortable, more substantial. 5 minutes in, and there's been some hints and close calls for First Blood, most notably Scream barely getting away with their life, but being able to stay alive. And so we're approaching, again, a very calm pace. It feels like the Scarabs have recognized that maybe they don't want to take some of these fights with the way the damage went earlier on. And you had already called it, but the Valkyries would love this. Let's just enter 20 minutes at this exact rate. We have a small lead. We're going to keep pulling slightly ahead and get a little further every single time. And then eventually a team fight's going to break out, and they've got really good team fight.
Gore, let's wax poetic for a moment and
Okay.
philosophize about the current meta, because
Yeah.
I think that most people would agree in Season 9 there is a lot of damage in Smite.
Yes.
I think that is just generally the case. Assassins are dealing a lot more right now because there's a lot more percent pen options early on. Mages generally have very good early game pathing for their builds. Flat pen early, you can go towards
And all the
Chronos
flat pen
Pendant.
has like really good power on them.
All really good power, right? But in the SPL specifically, it has been generally a lower kill meta. We've been seeing 10 minutes in, first blood, 15 minutes in, first blood. I think that these players are having to play cautious because of the amount of damage available.
And we might see that here. Aquarius looking to try and turn that around. Remember, Bludgeon does do more damage the more people you hit with it. It's not going to be able to land right there. Kiermi goes in.
What
He's
a
looking for
sash!
Scream. Misses the ult. And now Kiermi's trying to get away. Good walls from inbound. Kiermi's locked up, but the stun's not going to connect. Beads is going to be good. He's trying to run away, though. And that is more than what Scary D wants. One more slash and first blood 7 minutes into this. But Scary D trades his life out. And the Valkyries aren't done. They want a little bit more stun from Aquarius onto inbound. And Gamma chasing down Baronic. It's a 2 split. And they're going to get both of them here and find a 3-for-1 trade.
Man, what a crazy fight. Small mechanical plays are the difference maker there. Scream very nearly turns around the entire engagement by sashing the Bastet ultimate. Misses his own Windfire Wheels immediately afterward, and from there, the Valhalla Valkyries able to surge forward, but not before the Solar Scarabs are able to strike first, kill over to Scary D. After that, though, once inbound had rotated in, he'd used a lot of his Omi just to close gap.
Yeah.
So he gets there and doesn't have anything left in the tank to help out. Baronic is isolated on his own, essentially soloed by Gamma and the help of a Scepter, which might as well be an unofficial 6-man at this point. That damage output at the 7-minute mark incredibly high. And the Valhalla Valkyries, as we were concerned, with a 1-1 team fight. Well, not 1-1, but a 1-1 team fight.
Yeah.
Now has a massive lead.
And I was going to bring up our game. Eventually, I was going to ask you about, okay, who do we think's going to die for first blood? We don't get that anymore. Maybe we'll see something go even more in the mid lane. Gamma is playing aggressive. This is what we like to see out of a Bacchus, though. Jump in. Like you mentioned, you've got the Scepter. Either you're healing your teammates or you're taking a fight. Speaking of taking a fight, Stewart uses the ult, helps peel for himself. Doesn't have a lot of mana to work with, and Wowie backs off here. Wowie didn't get a chance to play up against Stewart in the SBL. I believe did have a few skirmishes against him in the SCC at the beginning of last year, so not an unknown matchup to him, but definitely one that is feeling fresh again.
Yeah, it's been a while since they've been able to line up against each other, and I think there's some nuance to that matchup. We'll see if Scary D is able to walk out of here. Beads used to set into madness, not up quite yet. If Kiermi loops back around, that ultimate could spell the end of the Soul Lane or the Solar Scarabs, unless Inbound's got something to say about it.
Something weird about seeing a giant glowing Cthulhu. Maybe I'm just not used to it. CC immunity there for Scary D. And, well, maybe something's going to happen. They're kind of standing around. The Valkyries looking for something. The Scarabs are definitely playing defensively here. They're dancing on a ward, so vision is abundant. Scream knows what pathing to take to not get caught out. And maybe what pathing to take to try and isolate Gamma with inbound there. Ult back up. Valkyries are going to back off. And what we were talking about, like potential energy versus actual kinetic energy. All the potential energy there disappears.
It does. So I wanted to talk about the dual lane matchup, Stewart up against Wowie. CERN, having received a buff in Season 9 where Bramble Blast now has Cripple, is a deceptively good matchup for CERN, I believe, up against Medusa.
Yeah.
Generally, you want Lacerate Viper Shot. That's the bread and butter for Medusa in the lane. You're able to do upwards of 80%. Time that Bramble Blast properly, now that it has a Cripple, you can cancel out the Lacerate, you can make sure Lacerate doesn't work, and then all of a sudden your damage output is so nice in this lane. I mean, we saw it there. Wowie, with the changing the seasons, already swinging for upwards of 127 against Gods, 140 on these minions. Bramble Blast doing about 300 already. 2 auto attacks and a Bramble Blast, that's like 70% of Stewart's HP. This is a very high-octane lane. Either one of them makes one mistake, we could be looking at a solo kill.
We've been seeing some insane ults as well from Kernanos. It's going to be inbound, though, right now. Who's locking it down? Wowie gets a good dash. Beads, get him away. Polymorph is going to be good enough onto inbound, but Beads out by Stewart. The fight still going on. Stun's going to connect. BDQ kills Baronic all the way over there. Stewart leaves the kill for a little bit. Almost gets turned around on. Lucky for him, the rest of the Valkyries are over on the right-hand side of the map, and they're going to trade that out 1 for 1.
Stewart almost drops that in the goofiest Disney Channel way ever, man. He walks into the Riptide not once, not twice, I believe it was thrice, just knocked away, not able to quite finish off that kill. Buys time for Wowie to get that Bramble Blast back and turn that fight into something interesting. Feels like you probably want to avoid those mistakes in the future, but at the end of the day, still a clean win in the duo lane for the Solar Scarabs, in that Wowie uses his beads, no longer has ultimate. Aegis was already on cooldown, and Stewart, on the other hand, does get to maintain both of his own relics. But on the other side, got to talk about Benny Q.
Yeah, just what felt like a pretty clean kill, and we're going to get to see whether or not it was. Kind of Zhang Kui things here, huh? That
was simple.
Was a ridiculous amount of damage, though. I did not expect to see that. I mean, the card ticking was a lot. But to see how much he got from just like the scream, that's insane.
Yeah, we can't call it the Scream, man, because Scream's in this
on the
game.
other side, yeah.
Keep it a little bit confusing. I think it's Exercise Spirits.
Yeah, I was trying to think. I wanted to say Dispel Magic. I'm like, no, that's not. That's the wrong god.
Yeah, so Zhang Kui,
We'll look at it.
tons of damage already. It's Book of Demons. Nope,
Nope,
it was
Exorcism.
Exorcism. Goodness gracious, man. We gotta get a refresher.
Yeah, we gotta wake up.
It's early. It is definitely early.
No, and it is Sunday, early morning Sunday. How do you? We'll get back into the game really soon. I just want to ask, how do you feel? Sunday morning, right? Typical thing people do: go to church. This is a church SBL. This is what this set can be.
I have no clue how to yes and that, Gore. I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. That I think that is legitimately sacrilegious.
Maybe.
A little bit.
Is it?
I'm not sure.
That's, you know what? We'll ponder that as Veronic tries to ponder his life here. A lot of damage again from the card thrown out by Benny Q, but it's not going to be enough now. A fight skirmish in the duo lane, and Kiermi's looking for more. Stewart is low, but the walls are going to separate this fight. Kiermi now all alone. Needs to wait for backup, goes in,
Got
gets
claws.
the whip, and the damage almost enough, but you got Gamma, you got Benny, and guess what? Wowie, he's jumping up here as well. They're going to be able to close the gap. Benny Q gets one, Gamma gets the other, and now it's inbound against 3. And this Umoja does not have enough damage to stop this. Going to be able to find a stun, slow things down a little bit. But a double kill for the mid laner from the Valkyries, and it reads 7-3, 13 minutes in.
Man, Aqua makes sure that Veronic isn't able to rotate over towards that fight either, so the Solar Scarabs, in committing for their kill onto Kiermi, maybe stick around a little bit too long. The rest of the Valhalla Valkyries able to work their way over, and where's Scary D during that whole exchange? He's just hanging out in the Soul lane, biding his time, waiting to become that late-game monster. That said, 2-level deficit, and he's rotating less, so Aquarius already making his mark known and simultaneously pulling a lead is massive for the Valhalla Valkyries, as is the neutral objective going their way. Now 5,000 already gold up on the Solar Scarabs.
That's a lot of gold.
Just as much experience, plus a little.
It's a lot to have 14 minutes into this game. Yeah, they've been just climbing a hill, and nothing slowed them down too much, right? A couple of kills, the first blood did go towards the Scarabs, but I think a small bump in the grand scheme of the road the Valkyries have been traveling on. Now it's gone back to, again, go back, clear your own buffs, play it safe, don't necessarily look for unnecessary aggression. But they've got a tier 1 already taken down in mid, so Benny Q's feeling pretty good about his lane and rotations. You've got a lot of pressure over here from Aquarius. Again, you had mentioned it, but like the level up that he has, 2 levels in mid for Benny Q. So with that experience lead, specifically now a second relic for Gamma that inbound just won't have for 2 more levels, opens up maybe some team fight potential here on the right side of the map. Greater Scorpions being looked at. Gamma leashes it to go and look for a stun, and now Scary D's rotating in. Good knock-up from Gamma, but he's got to wait for help, and Benny Q is here. Look at the damage. Scream is just taken down, and now it's going to be even more from the Valkyries. Aqua into the backline, continuing to chase them forward. Inbound, the tick damage, not enough to find the kill, but it doesn't matter. Kiermi's here for the triple, and now it's just Scary D left on this side of the map, walking away, maybe limping away, and Gamma once more. Benny's coming through the tower, and Kiermi's waiting under the tier 2. There's no safe place for you. They're going to walk into it and look for the 4th. The solo laner goes down. Kiermi finds the unofficial Quadra, and now the team can run right into the FG pit.
The Solar Scarabs are being systematically destroyed in this one. The Valhalla Valkyries are just everywhere on the map. The rotations have just been better. They are constantly outpacing their opposition. It is always a numbers advantage, and it's already been a golden experience advantage, so you can't afford to simply have less numbers in these fights, but you gotta highlight Gamma for the Valhalla Valkyries. He walks in 1 versus 3, peels off the Scorpion. Kyrmi's fully disengaged towards the Pyromancer, does eventually pull Scream over the wall to finish off the kill that Gamma had started, but Gamma takes the 1 versus 3 and essentially drops all 3 of them down to below 50% HP on his own. That's what you're allowed to do when you're 4 levels up.
Well, Kyrmi taken up into the air will get killed off by Scream. It's going to cost Scream a lot here. Probably his entire life. Yes, taken down. So
That's
the
a good trade.
4-3, now 4 Bastet, and the 1-3-1 Naja on the other side. Good trade just to get rid of Kyrmi.
Get rid of the Fire Giant
Oh, right.
as well.
I forgot about the
Yes.
SG buff.
Oh, also, Kyrmi is legitimately just worth more. Had a much higher bounty at that point.
3
Scream,
levels up.
Yeah, not worth as much. Going to respawn a little bit more quickly. Takes the Fire Giant buff off and could potentially slow down the siege of the Valhalla Valkyries. I say potentially because I don't think it should legitimately slow down that siege, considering how ahead the Valkyries are and considering how just dominant Gamma is continuing to be in the jungle. Benny Q will join his team, as will Aquarius on the left-hand side of the map. And the Solar Scarabs slow on the uptake, still not here. It's just inbound. I think this tier 2, it's going to fall.
And you've got both your frontliners, Stuart, Scream, going to be joining. Veronica a little late. Inbound throws up the walls. Inbound's health bar is just gone, and so is that tier 2. Nothing to stand under, and Aquarius wants to go. The team wants to try and chase down Scary D. They'll let him go. It's just Cthulhu, and try to pressure the Phoenix. 17 minutes into this game, and they are knocking on the door of the base. Taking a little while to burn this Phoenix down. Backdoor protection still going to be a
What?
problem. Scary dashes in, and Benny Q and Wowie just kill him. They're going to knock down this Phoenix. They're going to move forward into the base, kill off Stuart, looking for Boronic. That Aegis is only going to buy you a little bit of time, and it's 2 left on the Scarabs to try and defend.
To quote a legend, Gormizer, the Solar Scarabs, that's embarrassing, man. First performance against the rookie team in the league, just now qualifying into the SPL from the SCC. 16-4, 17 minutes in, already removed a Phoenix and just eviscerating the Solar Scarabs. We haven't seen a fight back yet. This has not been a coordinated effort. Why is Inbound defending on his own in a tier 2 tower? My man, you are level 12 and you still have not picked up a second relic. You cannot do that. That's just simply not the case. Scary D, level 15, dashes forward, doesn't get the ultimate off, doesn't even channel the beads, just dies. The Valhalla Valkyries, they're a good team. I'm not going to mince words. They are an incredibly strong team. They qualify here with ease relatively, but it should not be this smooth a transition. It's a different level of play, and the Solar Scarabs, they're not playing up to it.
That's the balance, right? You're getting a really good level of play from the Valkyries, and you're getting the infamous 11 a.m. Scarabs that I've been hearing a lot about over the last few weeks, at least for right now. Still maybe waking up. But that can only go so far in terms of Johns for this one, right? Because realistically, the Valkyries are just playing well. Benny Q, he's up in the air. You're hitting for 145, and he's looking to turn this one around with Gamma. Scream takes too much damage. It's Benny Q with a double. He's still not killed off. 9-0 and 8. Let's make it 10-0 and 8. A triple kill for Benny, and the Scarabs gank goes wrong.
The Valhalla Valkyries can do no wrong on the map. Stuart not present for that team fight. That's the silver lining. He wasn't there to die with the rest of his allies. The Valhalla Valkyries quickly approaching the base, bypassing the middle Phoenix. It's time for the Titan.
Yeah, they just want to end. They don't even have Benny Q and Kyrmi right now. It is going to just be the 3 of them. Kyrmi keeping Stuart preoccupied, and with no one else to defend, the Valkyries strike first. 5 times the kills, and a ton of gold in their pocket. And they're going to be able to take down the Solar Scarabs in game 1.
Look, the Titan was, what, 20% of the kills
Look
there?
at the celebration. Benny Q's really feeling it.
Hey, boys, good stuff. Oh, well, at least he's got some homies there. Yeah. I think our boy Mike, the stage manager, at least brought him some friends. A little bit less joy over on the side of the Solar Scarabs. There's going to have to be some adaptations in Game 2. Not much goes right for him.
That's a big ask. Again, maybe it's a wake-up call now for the Scarabs. That might be the loudest one you could get. It's like, hey, guys, not only did things just go wrong for you, you lost the game, and an astounding lead for
And an
the
astounding
Valkyries
pace.
there. And they just started, and then when like it took what 6 minutes,
8
7
minutes, I
8
believe.
minutes, yeah, before first blood happens. And then from that point forward, the Valkyries like, oh, we run this.
Oh, we own here every single objective, every single team fight. And I think it really was just the rotations, man. The Valkyries were more present on the map at every location.
Well, they've already put themselves on the board for this year with a win. We'll see if they can close out this set 2-0 or if the Scarabs are going to bounce back in game number 2 right after this.
And welcome back. An explosive game one out of the Valhalla Valkyries will net them the lead to start off this set up against the Solar Scarabs. And right out the gate, swinging for both of these teams out here. They're trying to get the action going both in the dual lane and over in the mid lane. But Trelly, when it comes down to this, I mean, this was mid lane kind of a gap out here. I mean, Benny Q at what, 10-0 to start this one out here, Trelly. An explosive start for this rookie team.
Yeah, I want to apologize to anyone that saw my prediction segment when I was talking about the Valks maybe having some growing pains, maybe getting adjusted to the league. That was all false. They came out swinging. There's no adjustment. They are ready to play at this level, and they proved it here. Yeah, Benny Q popping off on that Zhong. Gamma had pretty much freedom on this Bacchus pick as well, just to flop it whenever he needed. And it seemed like, obviously, Wowie was the contention point, but he was still able to get his damage off, even though he was getting pretty focused in that dual lane as well.
I mean, Benny Q getting active across the map very early on, making rotations towards solo lane super early, then over towards dual lane just a little bit later on. I mean, Benny Q was essentially the second jungler for this team out here. I mean, Kirmi had a little bit of a struggle starting things up, but Benny Q able to pick up the slack there in the mid lane. And then Wowie, as the late game started coming, that Cthulhu that we talked a lot about, you know, how is this Cthulhu going to impact these fights? So it's going to give Benny a hard time. Well, by the time the Cthulhu got to these fights, it seemed that Wowie was able to step up and take care of it.
Yeah, it seemed like, again, if you can get onto the Zhonghui early, before this damage is online as a Cthulhu, it's going to be very, pretty easy. And then here, Benny's getting focused, right? The Naja ult comes out, and then he just says, I'm going to turn this around for a triple kill. Obviously, some great peel from Gamma as well. This is what I was talking about. Just seemed like anytime there was ever any form of like, hey, maybe my carry could die here, Gamma was there to provide that peel you need to get your damage offline, and then, yeah, 14.0 KDA, looking pretty solid for the Valks mid.
Yeah, for an official game one here in Season 9. I mean, yes, they had the kickoff tournament where they had to go up against the Leviathans. Not the easiest of opponents to go up against as your first one, but in our first official match here in Season 9, the Valkyries starting it off very strong to kick things out here. And when you're going up against a team like this, the Valkyries, it's something that we talked about a lot during the SCC, Charlie. It's a hard team to really draft against because you never know if you're going to get normal Benny Q. You never know if you're going to get standard Aquarius kind of things out here, or are you going to get these kind of more outlandish picks? And so far, we saw this kind of nice little mix between them.
Yeah, that's why they call them the Big Differ. That's the truth. I mean, it's just you never know what's going to come out of this mid lane, and that time, a lot of damage, very safe play, and just really, Baronic couldn't do anything, right? Anytime this Zhong was in the mid lane, unless you have an Aegis available, which, for the... it's only a 20-minute game, right? I don't even think it ticked over 20 minutes. So if you're not level 12, you obviously have no sort of defense against this. And the demons came out, and yeah, a strong start, obviously. So now the Scarabs are going to have some thinking to do. I think the Naja pick specifically, they weren't really finding enough off of it.
So when you're going up against a team like this, as we jump into picks and bans here for game two, Charlie, when you're facing off against a team like the Valks, we talked a lot about this team coming into this week. During the waiting room, we talked about a lot of the eclectic picks out of the mid lane specifically. But because you never know what Benny's going to do, you never know what kind of things Aquarius wants to run out here, where do you then pivot your focus at trying to ban a draft against this team specifically?
Yeah, it seemed like the Scarabs tried to say, hey, we're going to just focus on this duo lane. Obviously, they want to get that pressure online right away, and it just wasn't it. You have to put some pressure into that mid, obviously. It doesn't really seem like banning it out is the way to do. Maybe just get Scream on one of these more high-pressure junglers. Obviously, that time the Naja just wasn't hitting that mark for me. Maybe this time, again, there's only two bans left. The Gilgamesh and the Erlong still available at this moment. Maybe trying to get Scream on something like that and put some pressure onto the mid lane so that Benny Q can't make these pop-off plays.
Well, as the first bans come through, clean up Bacchus, an immediate adjustment there out of the Scarabs, taking that one away from Gamma. And then on the opposite side here, the Valkyries will take away the Bastet and the Kali. But it seems so far that the Scarabs aren't going to let one of those two warriors you were mentioning through. The Gilgamesh does get banned. If you are the Valkyries here, being in the second pick slot, do you leave that Erlong Shen open?
I don't think so here. I mean, at this point, maybe they're not worried about it. They are taking away the Kali and the Bastet, so that, to me, that's two Scream bans. And then might as well just throw the third one into that Erlong. Nothing on the Scarabs seemed to be working that game, so I don't think you need to say, hey, we need to get rid of that Yemoja, or hey, we need to really get rid of anything really at this point. So just trying to neutralize Scream and say, hey, we don't want you to get any sort of high-pressure early game so you can stop that mid-pressure we had. If I'm the Valks, yeah, I'd say taking away that Erlong would be the best option here. But again, they looked so good game one. Maybe they want to try to see what else they can bring.
So since we did see so much pressure over in that dual lane, the Scarabs, they had a Yemoja Medusa up against a Bacchus Cernos, a very even matchup as far as pressure was concerned there. But now with the Bacchus gone, if you're the Scarabs, do you continue to maybe draft towards that dual lane earlier on, try and get something even higher pressure out here to go up against the Valkyries. As I asked that, the Scarabs do lock in the Erlong Shen that we were talking about leaving open earlier. But if you are the Scarabs, do you try and focus a much heavier dual lane pressure?
I think so. I think the Scarabs need to get that dual lane online. Having Stewart comfortable and ahead is going to, help them out a ton at this point. But obviously, again, getting Scream on this Erlong, that's the biggest deal right now. Trying to say, hey, I'm going to be blinking onto Benny Q early game. You have plenty of different build options, but either way, at the moment, level 2, level 3, even level 5, very strong for this Erlong Shen. Getting the Solar Scarabs off to an early lead is going to be huge for them. And for me, the Valhalla Valkyries are trying to draft into that, saying, hey, we can shut down this Erlong with an RDO pick, something like that. The cripple field is going to help a lot with, limiting this Erlong's movement abilities.
Will be RDO and Yamoja as the response here out of the Valkyries. So solo and support have been confirmed for this new rookie team here with this Valhalla Valkyries. So now, with the option back to the Solar Scarabs, you've got your jungler with this Erlong Shen. I'm going to go ahead and just put my lock in that this is going to be the Erlong jungle, probably not going to be the Erlong support that we had seen previously on in the week, although I think that was towards the SCC. Do you get this dual lane now? Do you get Bobby's pick right away to get a high-pressure support? And do you get Stewart's draft right out here? At least they'll answer one of those questions with inbound. But, how important do you think it is to really get Stewart that big pick right away?
It seems like they are just going to be going for the Sylvanas, trying to get Bobby on that high pressure. Obviously, the AoE auto is going to help them out a ton. At this point, seems like they don't want to draft this duo lane anymore, the ADC specifically. If you just have this Sylvanas, you're going to have some solid clear anyways. So maybe just saying, hey, Stuart, maybe we could sit back. You can get a counter matchup if you want, just see what the enemy is going to pick, and then we could draft into it. Right now, making sure that inbound has that pressure with the AoE autos from Sylvanas and that healing, I think they're just valuing a little bit more here, as we see the Cabrakan as well. So that's going to be a lot of engage. This looks like a very solid W key roster right now where, Erlong's going to blink in, Sylvanas might blink in as well. Cabrakan, just triple blink, dive comp, make sure that the Valks carries are having, just miserable time.
So with that Erlong, Sylvanas, Cabrakan, most likely looking towards Cabrakan over towards the solo lane here up against this RDO. Now we know Guardian solo versus Guardian solo. That's basically just a pillow fight over there. You just kind of smack each other a little bit. You have your laughs and you move on because nothing's going to happen. But when it comes down to these team fights, where does this Cabrakan make an impact compared to the RDO?
It really just depends on what the Valks draft, obviously. If you pick something immobile, you have to get that Phantom Shout, right? You're going to be getting trapped in by the walls pretty much on cooldown. So at this point, the Valks are going to draft this Daji, which shuts down, I would say, 2 out of 3 of the Solar Scarabs picks right away. You forcing them into that Purification Beads. And you really can't afford, as an Erlong, to get that Blink start unless you're just confident you're going to be avoiding the Daji or juking those Powwow shots with. I think we mentioned this a little bit ago. Right now, at the pro level of play, no one's really missing these Daji ults, right? They're pretty consistent on hitting the Powwow shots. So trying to start Blink as an Erlong into a Daji specifically is going to be a rough time, as well as the Cabrakan. It's going to be a difficult lane if you're, constantly looking over your shoulder, seeing if Kiermi's there.
Yeah, the CC seemed to be a massive threat even in game 1. We were walking out, and as I get to the door, I turn back, and I see 10 sets of beads picked up across here. So no surprise that CC would be the name of the game. As the bans come through, though, Tiamat the Morrigan on the side of the Valkyries. Meanwhile, Double Hunter out of the Solar Scarabs. They'll ban away the Medusa and the Izanami. So that leaves open Cernanos. That one's going to go over to the Valkyries. Now my question to you is, where does Stewart go with his Hunter pick now that he's kind of been shoehorned 3 picks down?
Obviously, Stewart does have that Neath in the back pocket, but against Daji, not going to be the option here. And it looks like they are going to go for the AMC mid as they hover this Olron. We know that Stewart loves these magical ADCs. We've been talking about how they're not really in favor right now, but if you can get that pressure online, I think that's what this Sylvanas is for. Your early clear on Olron not going to be the greatest. So get that pressure from the Sylvanas and then just try to sit back, farm up, and then Olron gets online late game. One of the best team fight ultimates in the game in that Sanctified field.
But Charlie, they have a Daji on the side of the Valkyries, and the Scarabs just drafted 2 more gods with low mobility and no CC immunity. It feels like the Scarabs have kind of just drafted themselves into a corner here.
Yeah, they definitely have, but I'm thinking they knew this, right? They knew the Daji was picked. It wasn't like this was a surprise. This was not a counter pick. They said, hey, we see Daji, and this is what we're picking here. Obviously, AMC going to have some solid mid pressure, but you are, again, going to have to play very carefully when the Powwow is in play. You have to make sure your beads are available. You have to make sure you're positioning at least away from that Daji. So it seems like the Scarabs are either A, confident about outplaying this Daji, or B, they're just going to say, hey, we're going to deal with getting pulled in, and then we're going to team fight after the fact. If you do get pulled in and then drop that Oleron ult, you still have some room for play there if there's not this big burst waiting for you. But now we see the Valks are going to pick up Merlin in that mid lane. So early game, not so much pressure from the Merlin, obviously, but late game, that's when he's really going to start shining.
I mean, when I'm looking at these two drafts here, you got Erlong with a massive amount of self-sustain. Sylvanas and Oleron are both going to have great team sustain. Opposite side for the Valks, you got the RDO with a little bit of team sustain via the way that one, mostly self-sustain, then Yamoja obviously out of here. So anti-heal is going to be, I imagine, a massive part of the builds and the talks that we're going to have here. When it comes down to anti-heal application, where does that kind of allocate out here, Charlie, for these two teams?
I would imagine we're going to see double Onk picked up. I mean, right now, the beads is a must, because against the Daji, you're not going to want to deal with that. Obviously, inbound on the Sylvanas is going to have some sort of freedom there. He could go for a blink, but I think Onk right now, again, Yamoja can't really control where her healing goes. So at that point, you're pretty much just you're hurting your whole team if you are Onked in that regard, because they're doing less healing, and then they're also taking more damage. So I think Onk is going to be a key for both of these teams with the Wisps as well. That's going to be very difficult. Obviously, the Erlong turns Blessing. That's going to be, you can't really cancel that once you send it out. So I think the application would be just get a Cursed Onk.
Get a couple of Cursed Onks out here. Could be the way for both of these teams, really. I'm looking down the board here, and Sylvanas is one of those Guardians that gives you a lot of the pressure in that dual lane. You match that with potentially this Oleron here, as you mentioned earlier, that is a god that Stuart really does love to flex over to with these magical hunters. So with the Sylvanas and the Oleron up against Yamoja Cernanos here, it feels like the Valkyries are still kind of holding at least somewhat similar pressure out here for the dual lane. If you're the jungler on the side of the Scarabs, though, Charlie, where are you putting that first rotation? Who are you trying to get ahead on your team?
Right now, I think, again, you do not want to let this Merlin get off to a solid start. If you are Scream right now, you're trying to put pressure onto this Merlin in the mid lane, not letting BennyQ get a pop-off game, because Merlin comes online so hard towards the mid to late game. If you shut him down early when he doesn't even have his flicker available, it's going to be pretty easy to say, hey, I'm going to put consistent pressure onto this mid lane mage and not let you get those items online to pop off like last game.
Yeah, I mean, BennyQ went off to a 10-0 start on the Zhang Kui last time, wants to try and continue going that here on the Merlin here in game number 2. Can the Solar Scarabs bring us to a game number 3? Let's jump right into game 2 to find out.
Well, this one's going to be one for the history books if the Valkyries can take it 2-0. The Scarabs, though, bring themselves in with a strong draft, and they're looking to get aggressive fast. Immediately walk up to Aquarius. They don't find that first blood, but aggression seems to be the name of the game already. And immediately, just a little play. Doesn't get them anything, no relics, nothing like that. But you can see where their heads are at.
Yeah, so it's something that I've been pitching a very long time. It's that if you want to beat early aggression, if you get blown out of the water early on, the best way to fight that fire was just with more fire. So I suppose there's some credence to that style of play from the Solar Scarabs. Worth noting, though, that Invader's Curse is a thing that exists, so it makes it
pretty strong, dude.
pretty hard to go for plays like that, especially against an RDO. So interested that the Solar Scarabs would try for it, but I'm not too mad about it, especially with this style of draft. You've got an Erlong Shen in the jungle. You've got like a Bracken as well. Both of these picks very strong, levels 1 through 5, so you want to use that. Nothing ventured, nothing gained, and nothing lost there for the Solar Scarabs.
Well, this duo lane going to be interesting. I know we had talked a little bit, and the desk had mentioned it, I think, specifically about anti-heal, how much of that is going to be necessary, onks, things like that. There's a shell for inbound, presumably going to be a phantom shell a little bit later. You do have to talk about that Merlin, what he's able to bring in terms of Divine Ruin application, so very easy access to some anti-heal for them. I also think you got to talk about this Sylvanas, not for the healing, but for the pulls. Last year, inbound, really good at this pick. We just saw one, unfortunately, go a little wide. But I think up to this point, it has a lot of expectations behind it.
Yeah, he was one of the people that was preaching the Sylvanas when it was a more fringe meta pick, and then since then has become a little bit more popular. There are some decent targets for the pool, specifically I think Gamma one that you're going to be able to block down very easily. Otherwise, you've got pretty traditional escapes. Aquarius able to dash away, Kirmi with essentially the teleport, but Gamma, if you root him, can't move.
Speaking of Kirmi, damage thrown out towards him. Bronic, couple of autos shy of getting the kill there. Kirmi's going to be able to escape, and it's going to be just fine. That's very reminiscent. Last time around, we had a couple of skirmishes. Good pull from inbound, And maybe they'll find some pressure here. Wowie going for the body blocks, but they're looking for more. Root is going to find both of them, and that's going to be a big play for them, but the damage is going to be just shy. Gamma is first blooded. This time it only takes 2 minutes to find it, and Wowie has to play under the tower.
Early aggression of the Solar Scarabs. Scream making the rotation early himself, maybe trying to go for this purple buff invade. If that's the case, he's going to be standing around for a little while. But that's good for the Solar Scarabs to find something rolling early on, especially in the lane that has your Oleron in it. Generally a pick that takes a while to start scaling. Gilded Arrow Oleron, though, very strong at levels 1 through 3. Auto attacks very hard, has some self-sustain in the lane. It's generally around level 5 to like 8 where you're going to start seeing that power dynamic shift up between the Hunter and the Magical Hunter.
Well, solo pressure going the way of the Valkyries, and they're going to invade this blue buff. I don't know if Scary D has gotten more than 2 blue buffs, and both of those I would give credit. At the very beginning of the game. And yeah, stolen by Inbound there on the red buff and the purple buff. So the Valkyrie's not going to be on easy street this time. In fact, already up 1,000 gold. And another great pull from Inbound. That is what I was talking about. The damage going to be just a little too late there from Stewart. Maybe it wouldn't have been enough anyway. But you can see where their mind is at, and it is on fight.
It seems the Solar Scarabs have woken up here in Game 2. Backs against the wall. Maybe we're going to see him play to the full extent of their prowess. Aquarius, though, in some trouble, surrounded by 2.
This is going to be a test of Artio. No ults available. There's going to be some lockdown, but not enough. And that bear's going to be able to get out of there. Still has some self-peel if necessary. In fact, going to be able to help clear the wave despite the presence of 2 people standing in front of him. I would argue bravery from Aquarius to step up even slightly there. It does mean Totem of Coup, little changes like that. But luckily, they're keeping Scream off the board in terms of kills and assists.
Yeah, that is an unfortunate rotation for Scary D, who is already behind, had already had his blue buff invaded, and Aquarius, on the other hand, has been benefiting from solo experience and some invades. So now Scary D going to be even further behind in this lane as far as experience is concerned. Gold probably a little bit not great for him, but you still need to make those rotations, and Erlong Shen has got great kill pressure onto an Artio. The pin we saw can cancel out or at least stop that dash for the barest of moments, and that buys time for Scary D to rotate his way forward and legitimately stun Artio out of these dashes, or even line up some of these walls. Now he's ticked over towards level 5. I don't want to see Scream let off the gas. Aquarius was a major win condition for the Valhalla Valkyries in Game 1. Early rotations towards mid, controls Veronic very well. So if Scream can limit that, that's one way in, and one way that you can make sure that the Valhalla Valkyries have to start putting their own presence over towards the Soul Lane. And, well, I mean, Wowie's already struggling over there, considering the first blood happened in duo, so I think you could trust Inbound and Stewart to hold their own alone.
Yeah, they're going to continue at least their amount of pressure. But I see level 5 ticking on. Everybody has their ults now. And that's where that Daji comes back into consideration. A lot of beads on the side of the Scarabs, but not everybody has them. And it feels like if you're able to loop them up, specifically Inbound and or Scream here, could be some pretty easy pulls for Kiermi if they decide to get aggressive. We also have seen Kiermi, I want to say, playing this a little more, I want to say lax, right? You know, not necessarily getting aggressive. Very similar to how he started on the Bastet. Not really looking for the fights, but will happily take them if they happen nearby. So I think watching Kiermi over the next couple of minutes is going to be a big deal.
Yeah, Kiermi's target allocation is pretty clear. You want to go on Scream. That is the easiest target. No CC immunity in the kit, no CC immunity in the build just yet. The only answer Scream's going to have on this Erlong Shen is to pre-channel 9 turns Blessing so that he can get that burst heal as he's taking damage from the Pal Lao pool. Otherwise, he doesn't really have an answer. And the damage output from the Valhalla Valkyries is very high. If Benny Q's in the Arcane stance, you can make sure that Scream isn't able to go immediately into that turtle form. Or even if Wowie's nearby, Aquarius is nearby, the lockdown potential of the Valhalla Valkyries off the pool from Daji is a lot.
Oh, this is going to be the chance to show it. No, Kiermi just gets deleted. 4 Scarabs invade on the Obelisk. Oh, and they're going to continue stripping away some of those offerings, plus a free kill on the jungler. Kiermi burned his beads in there as well, which realistically, the only reason that's surprising to me is I wouldn't have think he had time to with how quickly he died.
Kiermi just getting a little bit over-aggressive, dashing onto Inbound, and Trickster Spirit, great engage tool.
Yeah.
Maybe not when someone's got AoE CC whenever they want, as well as CC immunity baked into the kit. Inbound immediately channels his own ultimate, and the follow-up was there. Baronic with the Stinger, just enough damage to make sure that Kiermi will eventually fall down. So now both kills have found their home in the dual lane. The Solar Scarabs going to have a significant lead there. You see it already. Oleron, not generally one I would consider a lane bully, is bullying the lane.
Yeah, he's got some decent control. Ring of Akate finished here for Stewart. And that's just the starting point, right? Like you said, it honestly kind of should be taking him about 5 more minutes, 2 more items maybe, to really become the full, like, I guess shark, I don't know how to describe it, damage dealer that we're used to seeing over in this side of the lane. Other than that, normally it's just a cool, hey man, we're going to fight. Can you come like press 4 for us? And then, you know, you can do whatever afterward. But we really need those sanctified fields. This time he's hands-on pretty quick, and that's going to make things tumultuous for the Valkyries. It helps if I say the word properly, tumultuous.
Hey, there you go.
Valkyries. And I don't know where their turnaround point's going to be. I mean, right now, experience, you would kind of highlight it as getting a little out of hand, but is Kirmi still kind of the leader despite the way the last death went?
Yeah, Kirmi is going to be the initiator. Until Scream gets beads or a Magi's Blessing, Kirmi is always going to have a great target. Doesn't even necessarily need to have any damage output from this Dodgy. As far as I'm concerned, all you need is the CC. We haven't seen a Pal just yet. Scream only really having exposed himself to danger once, and that was towards that gank in the Soul Lane. Since then, generally just been farming in the jungle or playing around inbound. But that said, Kirmi can't let up. You really want to make that power play while it exists. 40 seconds left on Kirmi's bead, so that might be the timer he's playing around to see once he can get aggressive yet again. But he doesn't need that either. I really just want to see him start hunting down Scream on the other side.
Yeah, as of right now, you've got 4 levels to work with. Let's call it 3.5 because we know Scream has been farming pretty well. Might be able to get some of that here. Inbound. A little late on the ult. Benny Q gets pulled in, though. The rest of the team didn't get the memo. That's going to be the River's Rebuke. They're going to wall him off, and Inbound is taking the damage, but it's not enough to kill them off. This is going to pull Scream at the minimum, and it gets Inbound as well. They're picking up 1. They're looking for 2. Gamma gets a double, but Benny Q does get traded out. Boronic makes sure that they don't go away with nothing.
Bees do the final hit towards Benny Q in mid. Unfortunate for him, falling down in such a way, but that's exactly what you need to see from Kirmi. The pool is going to result in a kill regardless. Unfortunately for the Valhalla Valkyries, the kills both go towards the Yamoja. Not the worst thing on the planet to have ahead. 2-level lead now for the support of the Chaos team, but had that kill landed onto Benny Q, maybe we wouldn't talk about a 2-level lead for Boronic. Had either of those kills landed onto Kirmi, he would have been able to maintain his 1-level lead that he had on Scream. At the end of the day, I think that might not even be a massive win. Yamoja's not going to do much with the lead.
Oh, Scary D not able to get the blue buff and might not escape with their lives. CC connects from Aquarius. Kirmi's here, and Aqua gets the kill. So they're picking up across the board. The slack the Valkyries had in the first few minutes, it's now 3-3, but Scream, he's on the prowl.
Oh, he might have him. All he has to do is walk in towards this speed.
Yeah, he's going to see it. And Kirmi has no mana. There's nothing he can do here. Pin's going to be there. Doesn't get the speed buff, but does get the kill. Now Kirmi is going to take 30 seconds to respawn. I don't know if he's going to be able to get that.
No, not at all. Someone else can take it. Gamma's got a lead. Maybe he'll pick it up for himself. Scream, though, has put himself pretty deep in enemy territory.
Yeah, there's a taunt. That's not going to help too much. It's just going to CC him for a little bit. Gamma, well, maybe, or Benny Q? Yeah, okay. Someone's going to be able to support themselves with a nice speed buff, move around a little bit faster. Scream does end up, I guess, trading 1 for 1 there. Kirmi, though, getting put down, helps Scream close up that gap. Gold Fury started by the Scarabs. The Valkyries, Gamma, might be able to spot this one out. Sanctified Fields are dropped, and yeah, they're going to just say, okay, we'll leave you to it. And that's going to give the Scarabs a pretty solid gold lead here early in the game. 2,200, 10.5 minutes in, but Experience, Mifflin, it's right next to each other.
Yeah, experience means about as much, if not slightly more than gold at this point, but 2,000 is enough to offset that, a fair deal. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact of the kill allocations on the Valhalla Valkyries. Gamma taking yet another one for himself. Good for me, because he's on my fantasy draft. Maybe bad for the Valhalla Valkyries, because they'd love to have their carries have at least a little bit more farm going forward. Specifically, though, Kirmi is still maintaining a level lead in the jungle. So, in doing so, has limited Scream's own farm, and in doing that, has limited his ability to pick up those beads, which means the Pal can still do exactly what we saw last time around. Pull in this Erlong Shen, and as long as one other person is nearby, probably kill the Erlong Shen.
I have to imagine, speaking of fantasy, that JMax incredibly elated with Benny Q's performance. 10-0-8 from game number 1. Right now, 0-1-3 So maybe a need for a shift. They get the Pyromancer here on the Valkyries, help alleviate some of that gold pressure. But Scream is pretty deep, maybe taking too much damage. Wowie is going in, but he's against 3 here. You got to play this carefully. Good knock-up from inbound and good follow-up from the team. They kill off the carry like it's nothing. Benny Q and Gamma have nothing to offer to this fight.
That is twice now the Valhalla Valkyries have jumped headfirst into defending their flowers, and twice now where they've fallen for it. First time around it was Kirmi, second time it's Wowie. Suppose just not really realizing how many Solar Scarabs are actually hovering nearby, because CERN doesn't really win a 1 versus 3, and Wowie is 3 levels down. Curious decision making there from the rookie hunter in the league. Well, maybe not a rookie. Wowie's been in the SPL a couple times, but rookie anew, born again rookie.
Yeah, the born again rookie. And admittedly, it's first time in the SPL with the Obelisk, granted for everybody, but give them some credit. Dying for it, we'll figure out whether or not they think it's worth it, or if it just ends up being worth it overall. Baronic walled in. They're looking for blood and dropping every ult they can. 2 down, Kirmi and Gamma. But they do take down Baronic. 40 seconds without the mid laner, and that should be a small opening for the Valkyries.
And about 2 minutes without those beads once Baronic does respawn, so the Valkyries can try and do it yet again. Something Desk highlighted, the Solar Scarabs did not draft well to deal with this Daji. It really is down to the CC immunity that they're able to purchase, be it beads or Magi's, and well, Baronic's only got 1 of those, and it's down for a fair bit of time. So Kirmi's got 1 more target he can start looking towards. Scream has picked up beads for himself, but that's going to be on cooldown for about 15 more seconds. Baronic better keep his head on a swivel. I think he's got a target on his back.
Does give one more target because the beads are down for Baronic, 1 less target because now Scream is going to be able to avoid some of that pressure. We'll have to see where it ends up going. Red buff invade, inbound, and Scream leading the way. They're not going to be able to secure that one. Gamma almost took it. But Beniki is going to be able to pick that one up, and they're going to go back to a more neutral state. The biggest thing about that last kill, Mifflin, to me, not only is it the beats, but realistically, it's a little bit of pressure for Beniki, right? He was 2 levels down, finally bolstering up this Merlin a little more.
Yeah, and Merlin's going to have a lot of objective DPS. Now he's already 2 items completed in the build, moving in towards that 3rd. Likely the Soul Gem in that slot. Going to help on a fair deal with that sustain against the dive of the Solar Scarabs. And that dive is comprised of Scary D and Scream, Kabrakan, and Erlong Shen, respectively. Merlin's got the ability to deal with those walls, but peeling off an Erlong, it's not that easy.
Scream, aggressive onto Beniki. Beniki avoiding the knockup for now, putting some damage on himself, but it's going to be a fight, and it's going to be a pull onto Baronic from Kirmi. Not enough damage to find the kill yet. They're looking for Scream instead, and they're going to be able to get it, but it's jungle for jungle here. Baronic's still low, and there's no big rotation. Pull just shy for inbound. It seems like that's going to be where it peters out. Scary D walking into the lane. He's got the stun. He's got the blink. He goes for Gamma. The walls are good onto Beniki, and he's going to lock him down alongside inbound, but the damage is better from the Valkyries right now. They get 1 for 1 one more time, and now Baronic is the one in trouble. Wowie rotates in, polymorphs too, and they're still chasing that last kill. Baronic, miracle worker here, is able to get out of there, and it's Aquarius who falls. If the stun is good from Scary D soon, Gamma will be the next one on the chopping block, and it is going to be true. The full-on deicide, and Baronic not only lives through it, he gets a double.
Man, you got to give credit to Stewart as well. That rotation in and that sanctified field separates that fight so incredibly well. Out-rotates Wowie on the other end, who does come in eventually, finds the double ultimate, turns 2 into a pig, buys time for the rest of them to continue their dive, but maybe only baits Aqua forward into that tower. The second Scary D gets out of that pig form, is able to stun him off and make sure that Baronic survives. Even in the initial trade, the Valhalla Valkyries get separated. It was Kirmi diving first and Scream diving on the other end. So Kirmi pulls in Baronic, but nobody nearby to follow up, which means Baronic just baits him out and kills him himself.
Primal Fury started up. This is going to be an easy secure for the Scarabs as well. Push that gold lead even further. 16 minutes in, and they've got 4,500 gold, and now the experience is wildly in their favor. And you can see where the biggest deficit is. Wowie is 5 levels down on Stewart.
Yeah, Wowie's not going to line up against Stewart just
he might
about
not
ever.
line up against anybody.
Well, it's going to be a little while. I mean, he could maybe take a 1v1 up against Scream if he starts it from like 30 paces away and has ultimate beads and Aegis available, and right now he's only got 2 of the 3. It's going to be a little while until Wowie hits his power stride. On the other end, though, Stewart can essentially leave that lane He's already level 18, finished up the Telekines, looking towards that demonic grip, I believe, for some percent penetration. He's going to be shredding these neutral objectives. Pyromancer, Fire Giant, both feasible at this point. The pace of this set has been ridiculously high. The Solar Scarabs, though, benefiting from a massive lead, I think should be the pace setters. Just head on over. Force a question to the Valhalla Valkyries. Are you willing to step up? Benny Q says yes.
Well, he's going to wait along the other side of the wall. Scarabs get the Pyromancer. So even more gold in their pockets. 17 minutes in, and they're looking for a kill onto Aquarius as well. This RDO has a lot of health, not enough to withstand 5 members of the Scarabs all in right lane. Maybe some pressure for the Valkyries to find elsewhere on the map, but it's going to be tier 1s for tier 1. And the Scarabs are going to keep pushing, but so are the Valkyries. A small version of a base race, a baby base race, because it's going to be just the towers. But the Valkyries might come out ahead of this trade.
Yeah, they're going to get 2 tier 2s in exchange for 1 death and a tier 1 and 2 for the Solar Scarabs. And this is exactly what the Doctor ordered for, specifically Wowie. He needed this farm. He needed the ability to solo out a couple of waves. Not quite enough damage for him to finish it off. Even if Wowie trades out his life, might be valuable to pick up the tier 2, especially considering Fire Giants pulled on the other end. This is all the Solar Scarabs could have done to make that a value trade, and Scary D might just have found the ADC.
Yeah, he's locked him down. Good stun. You've got Cure Me for help, though. And is the damage going to be enough? Trying to get the pull on the Valhalla. The chains have just been missing. It could have helped save Wowie, but instead Scary D, he's looking up to put 2 on the board in the duo lane, plus the FG. The Scarabs are full and ahead of the Valkyries here, trying to show them why they've been in the league a little longer.
Yeah, they've got the tenure, and they've got the ability to continue their push. 2 dead on the Valhalla Valkyries for over 30 seconds. Means the Solar Scarab should be able to approach this Phoenix with relative ease. Scary D won't be rejoining his team. Instead, trust them to finish it off as a 4-man core, and instead pushes out that left-hand wave, approaching a tier 2.
Damage is going to be there. Benny Q seems to be the target for Scream. Aquarius eats a ton of damage up front. Benny Q barely gets out of there good. Rivers Rebuke separates and isolates Scream. They've got him locked down, and Kama is going to get the kill, but it's 1 for Phoenix. So the scales balancing out ever so slightly, but not enough for the Valkyries. 9,000 gold for the Scarabs. Now they're going to go ahead and strip away anything they find in the jungle, go back, spend some of that hard-earned gold.
And this is why Game 1 was so perplexing for me. The Solar Scarabs weren't playing like this in Game 1. We did not see the rotations. We did not see the grouping. Here in Game 2, they've cleaned up their act a fair bit, and the Valhalla Valkyries have fallen behind significantly. And it all starts in that duo lane. You can see that ripple effect still in play. 4-level lead for Stuart has not changed in a while. Luckily for Wowie, Stuart cannot continue to level up. He's already hit level 20, and Wowie will catch up eventually, permitting that the game goes long enough.
Damage is going to be the real question as to whether or not he can match that point. We're seeing 7,200 coming down from specifically Stuart, and about 3,000 down from that is Wowie. This is typically where we see what Silver Branch Bow get built into and maybe expected here from Wowie. We just saw Benny Q finish off this Obsidian Shard. With the experience gaps closing, are these item power spikes going to be enough to keep the Valkyries in this game, or 20 minutes is this too much of a lead to handle?
Benny Q just finishing up Ob Shard, probably the most notable power spike for the Valhalla Valkyries. So the base defense just got a lot stronger. Merlin, very good in those scenarios, very good at applying damage as poke consistently and keeping these minion waves out of your Phoenix, out of your tier 2. So keep your eyes on him if you're a Valhalla Valkyries fan. Otherwise, Wowie's just there for CC and maybe for hitting a tank that isn't looking at him. If someone's looking at Wowie, he's probably going to fold like a lawn chair.
Well, inbound. He steps forward again. This is just a regular Fire Giant, so they need these minions for the backdoor protections. But that's going to be the go button potentially for the Valkyries. Damage on the inbound is going to be good. Great walls from Gamma, and it's locking down a few of them, but not enough. Sanctified Fields turns this one around. Scream does die. Gamma's low, but Gamma's going to get out of here. Aquarius, it's a different story. Pulled back in by inbound. And that one peters out. Again, 4v4, 1-for-1, solo for jungle. They go back in, minion wave here, and the Scarabs are going to knock down this Phoenix.
Phoenix will fall very easily once they are able to close gap onto it. It was just an early trade. That pull from inbound really does turn around that entire fight. Had Aqua been allowed to reset, I think the Valhalla Valkyries would have been able to maintain that left side Phoenix. And the pulls have been on point so far from inbound this entire game. This Sylvanas has got to have at least a 60-70% hit rate, and that is not easy That is a hard ask of your support inbound. Stepping up to the plate, though, able to do that for his team. I think that the Valhalla Valkyries may be a little bit overzealous in their aggression, specifically chasing outside of the Phoenix once we saw Stuart having already dropped the Sanctified Field. I think you got to start to back up once Gamma had already used his ultimate on the other end, but you still are able to delay the Fire Giant. That very well could have gone much worse for the Valhalla Valkyries, considering the already massive gold lead compounded by Fire Giant and the map state. So the Valhalla Valkyries, even in losing their Phoenix, are able to extend this game slightly, and their mid-Phoenix should be respawning relatively shortly. And with Wowie on lane duty in the left lane, should be able to get some gold for himself. He's very rapidly approaching level 20. Should have enough gold for Silver Branch Bow in pocket, 1,500 to himself. Maybe even upgrade a Relic and start to line up to defend this Fire Giant. I don't think the Valhalla Valkyries want to be put in a position to defend their own base again.
I guess the conversation at this point should really be FG Shred, since that's going to be the bigger point.
It's high.
Probably
both teams.
Good for the Scarabs, good for the Valkyries. What about Secure, Mifflin?
Secure, you're probably giving some favor over towards the Valhalla Valkyries just because they've got a mage for themselves. Hardest hitting ability might just legitimately be a crit from Stuart on that first ability.
Yeah.
So your Secure is up to a little bit of luck.
Well, we'll see how well they can do. Aquarius taunted in, walled down. They want this Artio, and they are going to get it. Inbound, though, is isolated and locked up. The wall's going to be good, but there's the Phantom Shell. He saved it from the last fight. They get to walk out, but Sanctified Fields also thrown out there. Could be the opening, a 4v5 here from the Valkyries. You had mentioned the Shred, though. And we're seeing it in action. The Scarabs going to burn this Fire Giant down pretty quickly, get it on all 5 members, and step up to the right-hand lane. Clear out some minions. Mid is respawned, but it's weakened. And this feels like they are about to do the dance that could end everything.
And it won't be a dance that lasts very long. Aquarius still dead for 20 more seconds. The Solar Scarabs, 5 strong, have still got their ultimate on Baronic as well. Relics generally available. And Scary D in first.
Yeah, immediately onto Wowie. Good walls, good damage, but it's not found the kill yet. Palau is going to be the call here. It's only going to pull in inbound, and the damage follow-up isn't going to be enough. The Phoenix is burning down, and none of the Scarabs have fallen. The Valkyries, back at full power, with Aquarius respawning, do manage to push this away from walking completely into the base. But how much does that get you when the Scarabs fall back, strip all of the experience available? Still people waiting to hit level 20. And Mifflin, this brings me to the next point. Granted, it is 3 minutes of a power play that you have to withstand here. But assuming we can make it to the 28-minute mark, assuming you get some of these power spikes online and you hit level 20 for those that matter, which at this point is just Aquarius left on the Valkyries, are they able to step up to the next fight with this amount of a gold deficit?
I'd argue yes. If you're 5th item in, 6 items generally, I like to consider like the vanity item, the item that's like, okay, that's very nice, but generally your core build is done by 5th item, and the majority of the Valhalla Valkyries have hit that point. It's a hard ask, Gore. You're putting them in a tough spot, asking them to survive the rest of this Fire Giant power play, but if they do, it will be better odds for them. I would have said that they were in a position to defend the Fire Giant the last time around as well, had Aquarius not been picked immediately in that team fight. Inbound, similarly, was in some trouble, but had a lot more survivability and was able to walk himself out of there with the help of Stuart and his Sanctified Field. We'll see. The Valhalla Valkyries, they need some players to step up, specifically Kirmi, man. These Dharmic Pillars, or not Dharmic Pillars, these Palaus have just not been finding their way home.
No, not at all. And I was actually thinking the blink for Aquarius. I don't know if I've seen Aquarius blink outside.
Oh, he
maybe,
has.
maybe for what? Disengages?
On the left side, Phoenix defense, he found a 3-man.
Oh, yeah, he jumped forward with that. And so I was thinking, man, a Phantom Shell would feel really good if I keep getting locked down by Scary D. But they don't have one available. Ankh is picked up there for Gamma. And so that one is nice to shut down some healing for the Scarabs, although maybe hasn't been quite as helpful throughout all this. Mid and left Phoenix respawn. Fire Giant still around for a minute 20 on the Scarabs with the power play. And the question is whether or not they can break into them. They need these minions, and they've got fire minions on right, so someone pretty soon is going to get distracted, and that's going to open up one of these birds.
It will. Kirmi thinking about making that rotation. Someone will have to address it. You can allow a Fire Minion wave to hit your Titan once. One wave won't finish it off, but it will do a fair deal of damage. And the Solar Scarabs in seeing that, we'll probably just be able to walk in. It'll drop it down to about 50%.
Scream tries to get aggressive. It's a 2v1 in mid, but it's a huge skirmish on left. The River's Rebuke thrown up. Gamma taking a lot of damage.
waves.
That's going to be a little stagger, but it's not going to be enough. Sanctified Fields thrown out. Wowie immunes his way through that one. The damage onto Scream, not going to be enough. Hear me. It's getting shredded by the Scarabs, and the pull just shy beats good from Aquarius. Fire minions on the Titan, and the Scarabs, they're in the room. They're going to close this one out. Push us to game number 3, unless Aquarius can do some massive levels of play. And Binniq, now he shredded that damage. It's not going to do enough. Alternate timeline buys him a few more seconds. The Scarabs take game number 2.
And they do it convincingly. It's all off the back of that duo lane, man. Early aggression transitioned them very well into the rest of the match. MVP, though, for game 2 has to go to inbound. That Sylvanas was incredibly potent.
Yes.
He hit just about every pool. You'd be harder pressed to ask how many he missed rather than how many he landed, which is not something you often get to say about a Sylvanas.
Especially, like, again, just to call him out on it, the first one didn't connect.
Well, you don't have to
and that
call him
one
out on
lives.
that.
Well, it only lives in my memory because I think that was the last one that I saw not connect. Like, he didn't get a pull at the very end, but it's because Aquarius beats the pull. Things like that, where it's just like, man, he is just giving pressure to the Valkyries, or sorry, to the Scarabs that otherwise just wouldn't have existed.
Yeah, and also Stewart dominates the lane on
Yeah,
Olarun,
like
4-level
super
lead
early.
for the entirety of the game. Just really felt like the Solar Scarabs cleaned up their act in
Yeah.
game 2 and started playing a little bit more so like themselves.
Well, game 1 was the slap in the face, right? The Valkyries give
Wake
them
up.
the hit, yeah, and they wake up for game number 2. We'll see if the Valkyries can bounce back or the Scarabs will take this in 3 right after this.
Divine deities. The Heavenly Light update has arrived on the battleground and has brought along a ton of new content. First, we have the brand new Heavenly Light event, a massive event spanning 4 updates and providing cosmetics and quests for players to enjoy along the way. Players can also choose to buy all from the very first day to get all of the content available throughout the entire event, as well as the brand new Tier 5 skin Queen of Cards Izanami. This skin features a brand new minigame system that allows the skin to grow and change throughout the lifetime of you playing with it in any game, so make sure you check that out right away. We are also celebrating another birthday for SMITE, and we have a free SMITE birthday event to go along with it. Players can participate by logging into SMITE each day during the 15-day event and playing games to earn free rewards that range from gems to in-game cosmetics made by your community artists. Make sure you log in and check it out every day, as you can only earn rewards on the day that they are active. Finally, we have a brand new Battle Pass, the Chibi Bots Battle Pass. If you like robots that are as adorable as they are dangerous, this is the Battle Pass for you. Progress through this pass to earn skins for Cupid, Thoth, Ymir, and Hades, alongside a huge variety of other prizes. Make sure to pick up the Chibi Bots Battle Pass today. You can find all of the amazing content mentioned and a whole lot more now live in SMITE.
Charge the death ray! You don't have death rays? Well, charge your boots and swords then!
Lifeform scans indicate this world is rich with resources. Prepare all available units for interplanetary invasion!
Oh boy! My first time on the front lines! I wonder if I'll be any good at this whole fighting thing.
Enemy heat signatures detected within orbit. Commencing combat preparations.
It's over. Flee if you must, but the beast is already on your trail.
I dare say, what kind of mischief is there to be had today?
What hand will you play?
Man was constructed and brought into his world to bring light and hope.
I will restore the light and bring justice to the people.
I'll be making the ground quake with my moves soon. You'll see.
With my boundless energy, I will experience all this reality has to offer.
Live for nothing or die for something. Your call.
Never count the Solar Scarabs out in a set, just like in Phase 3 of Season 8, where they went to nearly every set being a third game. They're going to continue that trend here in Season 9 by taking their second set now to game number 3 up against the Valhalla Valkyries. A much different look at the Scarabs here in game number 2, though, Trelly, where it was a lot of a struggle over towards that mid lane. The dual lane that Scarabs was really having a hard time getting momentum in game 1. Game 2, it was the complete opposite. Dual lane was off to a tear, and so was Scary D over on that solo lane.
Yeah, it really seemed like the duo lane just came out swinging. Stewart was able to get ahead, and then pretty much just popped off after that. I think he was like 7-0 or something like that. Had upwards of a 4-level lead from that duo lane position, obviously, and inbound on this Sylvanas, the Plex. As we just saw one, obviously the pull, I should say, were just looking very crisp. He was able to set up his team so well with the Sylvanas pick here.
That was a crispy double root right after that. That's the dream for a Sylvanas. Not just hitting one person with the root, but getting two of them at like the tail end of both of that hitbox there. But an impressive play from the Solar Scarabs coming back from kind of a rut that they were in game number 1. They couldn't find anywhere on the map that they were able to take fights. But Stewart really coming in with this Ola run, a god that he really loved to play back in Season 8, bringing it back here in Season 9 and showing why this is still one of his biggest threats of a god.
Yeah, we've been talking about how these sort of magical ADCs are not really in the meta right now because they can't get pressure in that lane against the characters like Cernanos, like Medusa, that sort of thing. But when you have a Sylvanas on your team that's able to help you clear the wave, it's going to just add that much extra pressure. Once you're able to get a lead, that's where these magical ADCs shine, as we get to see Scary D have the 2v1 here. The Kirimi was unfortunately not able to hit a single one of these Powwow shots, and then Scary D at the point, it's just too late. The first two miss, and then Scary D's able to turn this one around for a double kill while his team's on the other side of the map. So just huge plays out of the solo laner as well.
Yeah, I mean, ending with a 3-1-9 for Scary D, 7-0 for Stewart. And even Baronic having a nice little pop-off here this game. 5-1 over in that mid lane. But I think going back to the drafts here, we were coming into game number 2, and I looked down the board here after the fact that Dodgy had already been locked in with 2 gods that were lacking any kind of the CC immunity kit. You had the Kabrakan, you had the Erlang Shen, and then they draft 2 carries with no CC immunity. I immediately said, man, this feels like the Scarabs kind of draft themselves backs against the wall there because they picked 2 more gods that Kirimi should be able to capitalize on. But it was not so here in this game. Kirimi was not able to land very many of those powwows. We'll see if he decides to go back to that god here as we get ready to go back into picks and bans now. Game number 3, set tied up. It'll be the Valkyries with the first pick this time around. But if you're the Valkyries, you had a really strong game number 1. A bit of a rougher game number 2. Trelly, what's kind of the bounce back for them here game 3?
I would say probably getting Benny-Q on a character that comes online a little bit earlier. Obviously, Merlin, not the best early game damage. Like I said in the picks and bans in the last game, it just takes a little bit. You need a little bit more itemization before this Merlin's able to do those carry things, like the Zhong Kui from game 1, for example. Obviously, Benny was able to find lots of success early game because Zhong at level 5 pretty much is online. He's able to do tons of AoE damage and just pretty much 1v1 most other mid laners at that moment. Merlin, not so much. Not going to get off to that great start. So I would say trying to get Benny on a high pressure priority pick in the mid lane would be a great place to start.
We're seeing a bit of a change up here by the Valkyries. Before it was target ban, scream out, and then throw the Zeus ban in there, because why not? This time it's more targeted bans over towards Baronic. Zeus and a Muzenkov have both been taken away alongside the Kali. You can't let Scream have his signature pick out here. But the Scarabs are taking their time on their third ban. They're still sticking with taking a ban up against Gamma, though. That Bacchus now gone. Then throw Kleena and Bastet. So a little bit more on the jungle side this time on the side of the Solar Scarabs. And the Valkyries, with their first pick, have a lot open. The Artio can come back through here. The Cthulhu maybe a little bit early in the draft to grab that one there. But the Valkyries will take the Erlong Shen instead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think at this point the Valks are trying to decide, do we value the Gilgamesh more or the Erlong Shen? Obviously, both were banned out previously, but now both options are opened up. Obviously, Scream had the Erlong Shen last game, trying not to say, let's not let him run that back. Scream was doing a lot on this Erlong, but it was more so sacrificial plays, where I'll go in, hit a big taunt, knock up, and then I'm going to die and let my team clean up. This time, though, the Valks say, hey, we'll take that Erlong, and we'll give you the Gilgamesh this time just to see, but I'm going to be honest with you, Scream is very deadly on this Gilgamesh. There's a reason that he's been getting banned out so much on this pick. It's because he gets active very early and has lots of success on this pick.
Yeah, and couple that Gilgamesh with the Cabrakan, so a lot of that front line for the Scarabs has already been drafted here. I didn't think that we were going to see the Cthulhu this early in the comp out this, but the Valhalla Valkyries will lock that one in towards the solo lane, give that one over to Aquarius. And now if you're the solo Scarabs and you've already seen what the first two frontliners are here with the Erlong Cthulhu, where does your mind go here for the Scarabs? You know, what are you now focusing your draft more so around?
I mean, the Scarabs' last draft, obviously, we're looking at their 3 tanks right out of the gate. So they're, you know, probably running back that, just trying to get inbound on a high-pressure Guardian. Of course, the Cabrakan still could be a flex. Obviously, Scaredy had a great performance on it last game, so I imagine probably going back to that solo lane once again. Either way, I think you're trying to draft that other tank here in this spot, trying to get your dive going, because at this point, already Zeus is banned away, so I think they're really trying to hold on to this mid laner once again, trying to match, seeing what Benny-Q is going to do. So if I'm the Solar Scarabs, probably looking to get that Guardian roll and just try to get a lot of pressure. Again, letting Stewart go off to that start once again.
Sorry, I just looked over. I saw Benny. They got him a second little buddy in there. They had the first mannequin, then they gave it a jersey. Now they got him a second one in there. So Benny doesn't seem quite so lonely over there in that booth. But Solo Scarabs instead, they'll go towards the Heimdall as their final pick. So not going to get inbounds God just yet, as we can see. The 2 members of the Valkyries standing by Benny-Q's side this time around here for game number 3. And now as we go into the bans, where do the Valkyries go here? I mean, we now know that inbound doesn't have his god, or maybe he does if it is this Cabrakan. Do you, as the Valkyries, put some focus into putting inbound a little bit further down, or do you try and put some more pressure on Baronic?
Yeah, I would say at this point they already took away the AMC, so Baronic now has to change up a little bit of his playstyle, obviously, from last game. Inbound had a phenomenal performance on that Sylvanas, but this case probably was just trying to get lots of pressure in that lane. Unless you really think like this Sylvanas was unstoppable, I would probably try to take it away just because of how many of those pulls were there. But at this point, it's a completely different playstyle, right? The drafts are so different. Obviously, now you have this Erlong Shen, who's going to be getting active, trying to get in and set up for the squad. Medusa, again, so much pressure out of that duo lane, so probably just trying to focus away maybe one of each at this point, just saying, hey, we're going to limit some of that pressure out of the duo lane, and then also just put Baronic on something where he's got to be a little bit more safe. Obviously, the Morgan Le Fay, not too much pressure in that early game, game 1 in this set, so probably not too worried about that pick.
And Scarabs, they'll take the Morrigan out, and the Valkyries will ban E-Set away. Now, whether that's a mid-lane E-Set ban or a support E-Set ban, that's for only them to determine out here, because we don't have to, thankfully, do the work on trying to figure out which mine they were going there. Kind of a safe double ban, if you will, there. Jean-Kui, though, is a ban up against Benny-Q, not going to let him go back on the god that went on a tear in game number 1 and a Yamocha for the final. And then it's a Giannis, so we will be holding off on potentially Bobby's pick here for very last one. How do you feel about this Giannis now on the Scarabs?
I mean, Baronic specifically has been playing this Janus so well. Again, it's really hit or miss for me. Are these through space and times landing? Are they being influential? Baronic, we saw him on this Janus pick recently. He was able to get his team in and out of danger many times, as well as hitting those crucial snipes that you really need to make sure you're landing to get the benefit of this pick. I mean, if you're just hitting Unstable Vortex, you're not really getting the benefit out of Janus. So making sure your team has this global presence, I like this Janus pick a lot, and that's what they're leaning on here when the match is on the line. I think it's a great start.
Yeah, looking through, Giannis has been a fairly successful god for the Solar Scarabs in the past, but now the Valkyries are looking over towards Atlas. So we've had majority has been the Titans and the Leviathans really going towards this Atlas pick. It seemed that Aurora and Rongyu really liked the pressure this god's able to put out there. We saw Genetics dip his toes into it with the Leviathan, or not with the Lions, with the Kings earlier on this week up against the Bolts. And now, with a potential 4th one here with Gamma grabbing that one, with this Medusa Atlas going up against Heimdall, questionable Cabrakan, or 5th one here. How do you feel about the Atlas to round out this draft? For it, never mind, don't ask anything about the Atlas. How do you like Ares in this one instead?
I was going to say, when we do see this Atlas come out, usually the Solar Scarabs try to counter with that Nox. We've seen that twice now, but this time around,
None
the
will free
Ares,
my
that's going to be
grasp.
a menace for Janice specifically, trying to get into the portals when you have the cripple chains on you. It's just not going to work out. Trying to expend beads or through space and time every time that ult comes out is going to be quite annoying as well. But just getting Gamma on this high-pressure support, trying to get active in the early game, I really like what the Valk's done here, trying to say, hey, we have Medusa and Ares. We are looking to brawl at level 2, and we are, I mean, if you hit the chains, you're going to have a great fight.
Well, it might just be Kraken going over into the duo lane here. Amaterasu now locked in for the Solar Scarabs. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the old days of Ama support that we did have way back when, but as of recent times, this god has typically only gone over in towards the solo lane. Well, we'll have to wait until we get into game to see if it actually goes there, but going on the notion of Kabrak and Heimdall versus the Ares Medusa, this feels like it's Valkyries with the pressure over towards that lane.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Kabrakin has a few different options for clear at level 1, either the shield or the tremors. If you are going for the tremors and you're getting chained, that's going to be a lot of damage you're going to be taking there. On the flip side, Heimdall, not the greatest early clear until you're able to get that crusher online, but also I might as well, just because it's possible. The Amaterasu does bring a certain level of engagement to that duo lane as well. You have the passive when you heal. You can be in the fast stance or the damage stance, that sort of thing. So, and there's a little bit of objective shred, obviously, if that is going to be the option. But again, as you mentioned, we've seen so much more of these auto attack centric warriors in the solo lane just because of how prevalent Death Toll and Berserker Shield are. So either way, I'm thinking they're going to be getting out pressured in that duo lane, specifically Ares and Medusa, just too strong right now in the early game.
Now, Scream wasn't able to get a whole lot going here with the Erlong Shen in that last game. I think he ended with like a 3 and 4. Still not the best game, not the worst game out of him here. How does that playstyle kind of change up now that he's swapped himself over to this Gilgamesh going up against an Erlong Shen?
I would say the Gilgamesh has the same sort of early engage as the Erlong, right? Scream still wants to get active, try to find these early ganks, look for the drop kicks like levels 1, 2 with the blinks, things of that nature. But now you don't have to worry about the powwow. That was the biggest issue, I think, because Scream did opt to go into the blink instead of a bead. So had to be kind of on a leash there, just saying like, hey, I can't go as freely as I want to. This time, the Erlong and the Gilgamesh are kind of all holds bar. They can go in whenever they want and just try not to worry about each other too much.
When we're looking at these two team compositions, though, Charlie, I mean, looking down the board at the Valkyries and the Solar Scarabs here, when it comes down to the early game, that's where it seems these two teams have found success in the games that they've respectively won here. Where is the early game advantage between these two teams in this third game?
I mean, I'm looking at the Valks. I'm looking at an Ares, right? You see this Ares and this Medusa. Again, they're going to want to get active very early on. Heimdall more just wants to sit back, Bifrost away if he sees any sort of danger. But I'm thinking of Blink Ares chains, and I'm thinking of trying to get first blood very early on in that duo lane.
The duo lane seems to once again be the name of the game for both of these two teams. It's where the Valkyries initially found some success, and then Benny Q kind of popped off in game number 1, allowing the duo to kind of sit back. And then game number 2, it was the duo lane and the solo lane on the side of the Solar Scarabs here. So we'll have to see where the pressure comes out here between these ones. Charlie, I'm gonna give you the floor here, kind of put you on the spot. Which one are you gonna stick with your initial prediction here on giving the Scarabs a win?
At this point, yeah, it's going to be very difficult. I like Benny Q on this Persephone, so I think, yeah, I'm still feeling strong about the Scarabs draft, though.
We're going to see who takes game number 3 here. Valhalla Valkyries and Solar Scarabs, game 3 right now.
One of these teams gets to stand on top. The Valkyries potentially ending a franchise-long loss streak of 21. The Scarabs looking to just try and find their first strike of Phase 1, fall 2-0 yesterday to the Dragons. And they had a really good game number 2, so maybe trying to keep that amount of pressure up. Things changed, though, here in game number 3.
Gore, and remind me, just to reiterate,
yes,
the Valhalla Valkyries as a franchise,
yes,
what was the last team that they defeated?
It was the Solar Scarabs.
Okay, all right. Well, maybe there's a bit of
long time ago.
Was it Phase 3?
Phase 2, like beginning of Phase. So you remember when the Scarabs just kind of like blew up and detonated? It felt like they lost everything. It was one of those weeks.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Phase 2 of Season 8, now in Phase 1 of Season 9, the Valhalla Valkyries looking to end their loss streak. And I think they've got a team composition that is very capable of it. This is a team comp that if I just looked at on paper, I'd say winner dogs. Now Valhalla Valkyries, though, and I'm sure they're happy with what they've got for themselves. Am interested to see that the desk was right. It is Amaterasu in the support role. Very early aggression. You've got decent ability to clear out these camps quickly, specifically these solo camps like the individual large harpy in the jungle or even the Nagas. That passive of Amaterasu matched up with the damage output of a Heimdall. It's going to be pretty high. The only concern you've got is lockdown potential pre-5. Not a whole lot of it here for either one of these sides. Maybe Gamma, once he ticks over to level 3, going to have an advantage on this Ares.
Ooh, Kiermi. Oh, I thought I was going to look for a little bit more. That's a lot of damage from Benny Q.
Okay.
Does get drop kicked, so beads down for both mid laners now. A lot of damage dealt back and forth between the two. Baronic's going to heal up. Giannis, something he picked pretty comfortably throughout last year. Wasn't the most pick for him, but you know, it existed up there alongside. I think it was like Hurry was the #1 who had picked it the most. We'll see if it works out here. Drop kick against the wall. Scream's just doing it to him in there. Baronic's going to be able to find it. Kiermi just shy of being able to find a retaliation kill. Scream gets away with murder.
Yeah, when you don't have beads on your mid laner, it's kind of the jungle's job to handhold. You have to stick close, or that's going to happen every single time. Scream able to blink back in. Second drop kick always going to connect. Benny Q a little bit too quick on his leap. Should have likely waited for that drop kick to have started before he dedicates the escape, and in doing so, loses his life. Earlier I said that Gamma going to have an advantage in the lane once he ticks the 3. That's when you get the second point in chain. Ares level 1 and 2, it's pretty weak. He doesn't deal a whole lot of damage. Ares level 3 might be the highest damage level 3 Guardian in the game. It is that significant a power leap from rank 1 to rank 2 of chains. So now, inbound, probably going to have to play a little bit more safely. Will benefit from additional movement speed just by nature of being Amaterasu and that first ability, but worth noting. And something I realized the community doesn't all know, Ares not only slows you down when he hits the chains, he also strips movement speed, gives it to himself, makes it that much easier for you to chase out.
That, yeah, speed buff per target shackled, 15%. So that it's hard if you get a good chunk of them. And it buffs the Ares plus Flames % damage on that. I mean, early on, yeah, Ares kind of chunks when he's able to sit there. So yeah, you can see % max health per tick. It maxes out at 3%, so it's not anything crazy. But early on, any % is going to be enough to make you think twice about your engagement. Plus the chains damage, yeah. Could be fun. Level 5, another really big one. Inbound, notably, will have to use his ult for CC immunity if he doesn't want to get pulled. Otherwise, Gamma's got an easy enough target in him and maybe in Scream to pull in.
Yeah, the support matchup there is very similar to the Ares counter matchup, the mirror match, in that whoever ults first between Inbound and Gamma, just going to lose. But if Gamma ults Inbound first, Inbound will always apply the stun to Gamma. If Inbound ults first, Gamma will always pull in Inbound. So it's essentially a game of chicken. You might not see these ultimates exchanged in the long lane just about ever.
Ooh, Inbound caught out. Kiermi has like no mana to work with, but he's going in. Benny Q coming in to try and help. There's going to be the grasping death, and there's enough from the team to try and help him out. The damage is going to be there. Inbound going for the ult, ticked over to level 5. Gamma does not have his yet. The Scarabs murder one more member of the Valkyries. And they're looking for another kill. Benny's low. Baronic is looking for it.
Close.
Not going to be able to connect on that one. Chains from Gamma. Could be a big deal. Taking to level 5, no blink. So you just have to run at him the old-fashioned way. It doesn't seem like it's going to work out. Scarabs pick up another kill. It goes on to the mid laner. And a questionable engagement from Kiermi.
Yeah, had Kiermi had enough mana for just one more ability, had he been able to use that first ability to enhance his auto attacks, maybe he picks up the kill on the Inbound first, but engages completely 9 turns Blessing Turtle form, and is just stuck from there. Gotta be privy to the fact that Baronic has a global ultimate, so even though you think you've caught someone out one-on-one, Baronic always gonna be close by. Scream with the Winds of Shamash over the wall, able to separate that fight as well. Maybe Kiermi was banking on the fact that Gamma was gonna get there, and does get there eventually. Uses his shell to try and peel out for the Erlong Shen, but unsuccessful in doing so. The Solar Scarabs, they strike first, and they strike twice.
How do you feel about the shell versus the blink for the Ares early on?
It limits your aggression, but looking at the matchups as they are, you don't necessarily need to be blinking aggressively too often. I think it is mostly going to be used for the counter engage, specifically around this aggressive Amaterasu pick and the Gilgamesh. I think you can expect that the Solar Scarabs will likely be the ones originating the fights more often, and therefore if that's the case, Gamma can just be that counter initiator, always using that ultimate to make them think twice about when they can walk in.
Oh, Kirmi is just getting bullied at this point. Baronic just off the mark with the ult, but it doesn't matter because the rest of the damage is there. 3 ults dropped down to kill Kirmi. And they're fine with it because now the retaliation, can it even come through? Gamma, he's going to pull exclusively Scream this time around. Damage is good from Aquarius, and Descent into Madness is here. Gamma barely able to make it out. Nope, the portal locks him down. Now Aquarius trying to lead the way. Him, Beniq. The damage is abundant, but is it enough? 1 hit, the Mire too short, and Beniq's in trouble. Scary D finds the kill. It's going to lock him down. 1 for 2, 3 at that point.
3.
Scarabs are just cleaning up kills.
They are, man. The Valhalla Valkyries just getting baited into these bad engagements, and you'd expect the Valhalla Valkyries to win the team fight in the mid 3v3 because there's a Yanis on the other side. Yanis, very strong in late game team fights, not because of his team fight presence, but because he can hover around the edge and leverage that higher mobility. Whereas Beniq onto this Persephone, a pick that he is very adept at, one he's got plenty of time playing on, tons of tenure on this pick, is very potent at this portion of the game, thanks to Grasp of Death, thanks to Bone Rush being a consistent damage tool, and the ability to essentially lock down entire jungle lanes with his flowers. Regardless, not a lot of value from the Persephone so far, and some great rotations from the Solar Scarabs, able to turn these 3v3s into 4v3s and so on, and slowly pull these team fights in their favor.
Kick onto Gamma into the wall. Stun's good, and Gamma, well, no ult. Nothing to say about it. That's going to be a clean pick-off from the Scarabs one more time. Mifflin, I'm starting to realize where Scream's Gilgamesh has been banned out almost exclusively this weekend. It is not something I would want to end up against.
Well, you don't want to play against many of Scream's picks, right? What was it? In the last set, we saw like 5 dedicated bans just directly towards Scream.
It's been happening a lot.
Yeah, well, that seems to be the answer to deal with Scream for most of these squads, and this time, gross oversight, I think, not a mincing of words for the Valhalla Valkyries, and allowing Scream to take the Gilgamesh for himself because he has made his stamp on this game already. 0-1-5 for the jungler, 5 of 6 affected kills, a phenomenal stat line. But in not acquiring any of the kills for himself, he has still fallen behind. Kirmi, 1 level up.
Gold Fury pulled by the Scarabs. Wow, he might see this one, might go for the ult. It's going to be late no matter what. Scarabs get themselves the Gold Fury. 8.5 minutes into this game, 3,500 gold. And they are trying to speed run an SPL game at this rate. It is all going according to plan for them, and all to hell for the Valkyries. 4-0-2 and a 2-level lead in mid. And this Giannis, look, we don't see it a lot. Sometimes it doesn't even work out. But right now, Baronic looks great.
He does. Has actually 6 of 6 affected kills as well. 100% participation for Baronic, the mid laner in the Solar Scarabs. And I'm getting deja vu back to game 1, but in reverse. The Solar Scarabs in the exact same position the Valhalla Valkyries had found themselves, completely dominant.
Well, Kirmi gets the taunt onto inbound. Grasping Death is good, but no, it's the turnaround. Inbound does not quite lock down the stun, but it doesn't matter. Baronic, he puts another one onto his belt. Scream pulled by Gamma, but the damage, well, guess what? It's going to be going the other way. Mire dropped between them, and now Aquarius trying to help separate. Inbound wants the kill. Maybe he overextended. Kirmi is peeling for the team, or maybe he's just isolated. Baronic finds a 6th this game, and now Aquarius has to push away. Great walls from Scary D. Lock Aquarius into this one, and the Scarabs are going to put up an 8th kill. 7 of them now all on to Baronic. 9-1 Mifflin. 10 minutes in, 4,200 gold.
That is a stifling lead. This game, it's starting to get out of hand. The Valhalla Valkyries now going to have to hope for some mistakes somewhere on the map, and I've seen it thrice now, Gore, where Kirmi walks up to inbound and just ults him. Don't do it. Stop doing it to inbound. He is very tanky already. A fully stacked Gauntlet of Thebes, Silver Talisman finished up, and CC immunity in the ultimate. I don't care if you're going to lock him down with Grasp of Death. Dazzling Offensive invalidates that ability. Beniq, I assume, just using it for the damage there, but not enough to finish off inbound, and in doing so, it just exposes the Valhalla Valkyries to yet another lost team fight. It seems like the Valkyries are frustrated. This is gameplay that screams frustration to me. They keep butting their head into the same wall of, We got to get kills. We got to close up this gap. We need to get involved. We can't keep letting the Solar Scarabs pull ahead. We can't let them keep getting away with this. But doing the exact same thing over and over and getting the exact same result is not actually the definition of insanity, but it is insane.
Yeah. I thought you were about to literally whip out the dictionary definition of insanity.
Imagine I just
like
have a
you just had
Merriam-Webster.
a pocket Merriam-Webster on you at all times. I honestly wouldn't catch me too off guard if you had that. Katie carries around a pocket thesaurus. I feel like that's more up your alley.
I do. I keep that app on my phone.
You do? Right. Okay, see, look, we're pretty close. Hers is physical, but same concept.
It's way
right?
cooler that she has the book.
Yes, it's only in one of those purses. Who knows? Either way, not the definition of insanity.
No.
But
no matter what Vaz might say to you.
Still insane for the Valkyries that things have gotten this out of hand, and it looks like it might just continue that route. Inbound doesn't get aggressive there. It is a Pyromancer pull from Scream. There's the Descent into Madness. Aquarius is looking to pull something back for his team. It's 11-11. But Scream leaps out, and now the engagement is on Kyrmi's too low to do anything. Boronic with an 8th kill, and they're gonna look for more. Benny Q down in the ground. Aquarius isolated, and Scream's just gonna stun him against the wall. The Scarabs are running around as a gang, and they are stopping anyone from walking these streets.
Yeah, Stewart forced to retreat, and he's the only one from the Solar Scarabs who will do so, as Wowie able to force him back, and Wowie's got to do something on that side of the map to make it at least a little bit more palatable for the Valhalla Valkyries going forward, because the Solar Scarabs have picked themselves up another objective. Pyromancer over to the Chaos team, 12 kills in as many minutes, and I said game 1 was embarrassing for the Scarabs. I think it's true of the Valhalla Valkyries here too.
Like you said, maybe just some weird communications, weird engagements.
I think they're just frustrated,
man. At this point, 4 levels in mid, that probably makes a pretty big difference. You said 12 kills, 12 on the belts of Boronic. 8-0-4. Yeah, he's putting up some numbers to remember this time around. And you know what? We might have to start thinking and talking about his Giannis as one of the best. I mean, we got to see it last year. He's doing really well. We need more data for that.
Yeah, I'm like, there's like zeros, hurry wins out there, man. Memory of man is short, I suppose.
Well, at least in the league right now.
Yeah, I don't think you're stretching at all by saying that. Who else is playing Giannis?
See that silence?
Yeah, you hear that
answer.
dead air.
Yeah, that is me literally coming to a full stop. I guess because
like
last year
Ben
was,
occasionally.
I was gonna say last year it was exclusively him and Hurry. Maybe there were a few scattered out, Zeros pulling some through, and like you said, Vin. But realistically, it was just the Dragons and the Scarabs that like picking it up. Now it might just be limited to the Scarabs. We'll see how well if it can. And look, if it treats them 8-0-4, yeah, this is not an every game performance, not an every game lock-in, but it's a strong pocket pick to have.
Yeah, Gamma gonna stand his ground and try and defend a ward here. Inbound simply wins that fight, but it wasn't a Sentry ward that Inbound was defending. But actually, a skirmish that matters in leaving that normal ward up, the Valhalla Valkyries that is, because Gamma can't auto-attack through an Amaterasu. The Solar Scarabs get to maintain vision advantage.
Oh no, just shy of hitting for Boronic. They get the Primal, they get the walls.
I think he's dead.
And you know what? I think they're gonna get Wowie just as well. Another assist there for Boronic and a 3rd kill for Scary D. At this point, it is just an isolation game. And look, hear me. I don't want to be alone. I want to hang out. This is a horror game for the Valkyries. You turn the corner, and all of a sudden, the Scarabs are there, and you're dead. This is something that they have to play around. And Mifflin, it is not feeling good for them. Benny Q able to actually successfully invade a red buff. Well, maybe we'll hang a hat. Yeah, okay, he does get the successful on that one. And that's a small win and a blunder of a game so far for the Valkyries. 15 minutes in, 8,000 gold for the Scarabs here. 10,500 experience. The level lead is impossible to manage at this point, it feels like.
Yeah, look, 2 in the solo. I'm not going to go through all of it. Probably like 20 combined levels separating them. I see you counting it out, so I'll trust you to do it for me. The Solar Scarabs are officially in fumble territory. That is the only way I can imagine the Valhalla Valkyries with this style of composition can make the comeback. I talk all the time about how Erlong Shen from behind might be one of the worst, if not the worst, feeling jungler you can have. Because what is Kyrmi's job now? He's not tanky enough to blink in and 9 turns Blessing to engage a fight, and he's not doing enough damage to take a 1v1 against Let me run it through. Literally any of them, because he's the same level as Inbound, and Inbound's a full tank Amaterasu with CC immunity in the kit. Breastplate of Valor finished up as well. So he's just faster, even though Kirmi's probably going to have speed buff for the majority of this one. So the Valhalla Valkyries, I think, could potentially turn around a fight if Wowie like turns 4 people to stone and Benny Q locks them all down with Grasp of Death, and then Gamma pulls them all in as well. Like miracle situations from here on out. The Solar Scarabs, though, will give over an opportunity to the Valhalla Valkyries. This is an early Fire Giant pull, but one that they're right to do.
Yeah.
Will the Valkyries even show up? Kirmi, he spotted it.
Hovering around 10 to 12 combined levels between all of them. Behind Kirmi, spots it, and Kirmi gets spotted out here. This has not been going well for the jungler on the Valkyries. 0, 5, and 0. Now Gamma locked up by the walls. A Phantom Shell is at least going to save his life this time. Wowie doing maybe the only thing that can help this team out. Split pushing right now. Benny Q getting bullied by Scary D. Aquarius stunned against the wall. Fire Giant secured by the Scarabs. And the CC they had is good enough. They're going to push forward. Benny low, Aqua low, Gamma low. They're going to get at least one of those kills in Aquarius. They're going to find themselves Gamma, and Benny Q's going to make it back to base. Wowie on the other side has been split pushing. And again, it might be the only win condition here for the Valkyries is to do something on the map, because it's 10,000 gold, it's a tier 2, it's a Fire Giant, and it is all members of the Scarabs standing up on right to go down to this Phoenix.
Scream blinks forward, doesn't get much, does buy some space, so this right Phoenix will fall down with extreme ease to the Solar Scarabs, and the 5 members will continue to work their way across the map. Still tier 1 tower in mid, so the Valhalla Valkyries get a little bit of time to play with and strategize for their next based defense, but the Solar Scarabs might not even give that over anytime soon. Plenty of gold in hand for the entirety of the team, approaching 2,000 per member, barring Scary D, who has already made his way back to base. This is a tough one. 11,000 gold, experience too much for me to care about anymore. 13,000 for the Solar Scarabs. All ultimates still available. I think the Scarabs have just about all their relics up as well. You have Bracer coming up for Inbound very shortly, as is the Belt of the Berserker. Horrific Emblem in 30 seconds for Scream, and if your jungler's going for a team fight relic with 0 CC immunity in the kit, you're probably feeling pretty good about your odds in a team fight regardless. 5 stacks on the Urchin, an item we don't get to see too often. Do I break it down? It's defense. It's both ways, and every time you get a kill, it gives you some more defense both ways, and well, Scream's been getting plenty of kills, so he's already 5 stacks there. The Valhalla Valkyries, good luck, Godspeed.
Yeah, so I recognize how preposterous this question sounds, because they've got quite literally 1 kill.
Give me anything to talk about.
18.5 minutes. That Phoenix on left is exposed.
Yes.
And so in my mind, we're in this scenario where if the Valks get a nutso defense.
5 for 0.
5 for 0. Is that what you're like? It has to be 5 for 0. They can get that Phoenix. Can they win off of a defense like that, or can they only get a Phoenix? Because there's still 3 towers standing.
It depends on how nuts it is. If they are able to all be healthy enough to start the siege immediately, and they don't desync the deaths of the Solar Scarabs, I'm talking like all the Scarabs would have to die within like 15 seconds of each other.
Yeah.
They could end.
Well, we'll find out, I guess, if it's going to happen here. Scream feels confident in his capabilities, and he goes in immediately. Misses the dropkick, though, and now Kirmi isolated, but it's not going as well for the Scarabs as they would have liked. Scream is alone, but the damage onto Gamma, the damage onto Aqua, it's going to be enough. Great
big stones
from Wowie, and that's going to help turn things around. They're going to pick up Inbound. They're looking for Scary. Scary misses the autos. They've got 2 here. This defense is great for the Valkyries. They do still lose the Phoenix, but they bounce the Scarabs back and triple their kill count.
The Solar Scarabs were playing with their food a little bit too much. That was a pretty wild engagement in that every single one of the Scarabs was playing on their own. Scary D, Inbound, and Scream, the divers, did not coordinate whatsoever. But even then, the Valhalla Valkyries, in killing 2 and training 0, still lose their Phoenix.
Yeah.
That is the most important Phoenix to have lost as well, the hardest to defend. Once you start approaching these subsequent Fire Giants, right side Phoenix will respawn around the same time the Fire Giant does. So the Valhalla Valkyries will only have to contend with Fire Minion Waves in one of their lanes, and that should inspire hope in Valkyries fans in their ability to extend the game. But let's break down exactly how it happens. It was an overextended dive from the Solar Scarabs, followed up by a what I believe was 2-man pull from Gamma, a 3-man grasp of death from Benny Q, and Wowie not just connecting Petrify on 3, but turning 3 people to stone. And even through all of that, only 2 kills go their way.
Yeah.
Not ideal payoff for what was an ideal situation for the Valhalla Valkyries. But you don't need every single situation to be ideal. You don't have to do that level of play every single time. Each time a team fight goes your way, the next one becomes that much easier. The Valhalla Valkyries close up the gold gap slightly, but the gold gap is not as important as it once was. It's so much, it's more so just how much net gold do you have. We're getting to that portion of the game where the Solar Scarabs are already starting to finish up some of those 6-tier items. Could turn around.
Gamma's gonna pull Scream in. Grasp of Death is gonna be there, but there's not a lot of follow-up damage. Scream, he needs to get taken down if you want this to be worthwhile.
Double
2
stone.
stuns from Wowie one more time, and they get the kill onto Scream. They're looking for a little bit more. Kiermi trying to lead the way, has to fall back. 0-5-1 is the jungler, stunned out by Inbound, and now Stewart with the rest of the crew getting aggressive. They're gonna kill off Gamma here. Wowie lands back from the realms, and he's gonna try to take the trade, but it's not gonna go his way. Stewart is low, Kiermi is low, and the Scarabs, they're going to chase him down. Fire Giant just now respawns. Kill him, get yourself a free FG. Fire minions on the right-hand side pushing forward, and on the left-hand side walking into the base with only 2 left to defend on the Valkyries.
Wowie very nearly turned that kill around on a Stewart. He uses the Lacerate to dash away after coming back from Niflheim and nearly kills Stewart in essentially what was a 2 versus 1, because Stewart has a body blocker on his side, but still falls down at the end of the day. And the Valhalla Valkyries get yet another situation in which, had the game been in an even state, they would have cleanly won that team fight. A pull on the Scream, a double Petrify from Wowie. Not quite enough. Even Aquarius getting the full value of the Descent into Madness was not enough to turn that fight in their favor, and the Valhalla Valkyries will fall down. The Solar Scarabs will put Fire Giant on their belts. All 5 members now enhanced by the buff, and only 1 tier 2 tower standing between them and the last of the 2 remaining birds from the Valhalla Valkyries. Right side Phoenix is weakened and will remain so until it falls yet again if the Solar Scarabs so choose. But we've been in a defense situation before for the Valhalla Valkyries. This time, though, Fire Minion Waves already starting to work their way into the base of the Order side. That's going to be hard to deal with.
Well, good news. Experience and solo mid carry doesn't matter anymore. They all hit 20. Bad news, everybody else is still 4 levels down on the team. Kiermi Gamma still have a lot to work on to try and close that gap, have the impact that they can. At this point, Kiermi, and you have mentioned this, I think, a few times this week, from behind, Erlong, just difficult.
So hard to play.
And he has taunt that he can really bring to the table right now.
Does he? He might die.
Yeah, that might not even be enough. Phoenix is up, left side respawns. It's going to go down. Gamma goes in for the pull, does bring in Baronic, and that would be a huge kill. He's 9-0-7. The damage is there, and they're finally able to get it. Gamma, credit for the kill, and the push forward from the Valkyries might be enough. Scream diving deep for Wowie, and he might be able to find this kill despite what Gamma is trying to do. He finds one, and guess what? This jungler's going big for a second one. Benny Q picks up another one of the Scarabs. The carries are down. It is Scream doing everything he can to take out the members of the Valkyries that are doing the damage. Scary D is low, Inbound is low, but they're going to re-engage onto Aquarius. Stuns whiffed. They're going to turn their eyes back to the Phoenix. They'll get it, but it costs them a lot.
Had Scary connected any of his stuns on either Benny Q or Aquarius, maybe the Solar Scarabs would be able to turn that one around, but it was an too far blink from Scary D, and Benny Q's able to kite him around despite the best efforts of Scream. You said he was doing everything to kill the carries. I'd say he was doing everything for the Solar Scarabs in that team fight, full stop, as he's able to solo dive into the back line. 2-for-2 trade. Solar Scarabs lose Fire Giant on 2, and 2 important targets at that, mid laner and ADC. So now, the last remaining Phoenix will be a little bit harder to siege. 1.5 minutes left on this power play. The Valhalla Valkyries fighting tooth and nail just to maintain the base, and so far successful in doing so. This gold lead means less and less as that clock clicks onwards. The Solar Scarabs, I'm sure, would love to end it on one of these next sieges, man. I'm talking like 2 more siege defenses from the Valhalla Valkyries, and we're just about at an even state.
Yeah, here's the benefit of this game lasting so long. That 4-level
so
deficit.
Long, 25
well, yeah, 25 minutes. I guess long for the Valkyries. It feels like they've been on the ropes for 15.
For real, 6 rounds just dodging blows.
0-6-2. It was a 4-level deficit just a second ago for Kiermi. Now just 1 behind Scream. That feels like it should make a huge difference in this next engagement, assuming Kiermi can get hands on. Right now, Kiermi isolated and alone over on the left-hand side, and might just be alone. Scream's gonna jump in. The dropkick's not gonna connect. Now Scream might be the one who's alone, but no, they're gonna let him be and try to group up 5 here. Scream. He's right behind him. They've got fire minions coming into the side. Benny Q is going to be the target. Grasping Death's going to be there. Scream might have bit off more than he could chew this time around. And scratch that. He absolutely did. The damage good enough for the Valkyries to get 1 crucial kill. 3, 3, and 11. Gamma going to get sent through the realms here. But Aquarius, Descent into Madness, inbound, going deep. They're going to kill off the support. Maybe the second front line.
Whoa!
Moronic
Where'd he
just
go?
chunks his health like it's nothing. And that's going to be the go
see ya.
button. He finds another one with the ult. And they're going to keep ongoing. Triple kill for the Giannis. Can he get 4? Stewart finds himself a double. They split it 3 and 2 by the carries, and the Scarabs win this game.
That was a convincing team fight to end a game that likely should have probably ended 2 or 3 sieges back, but the Solar Scarabs make the bounce back. It was a dominant Game 1 performance from the Valhalla Valkyries. 0 fight back from the Solar Scarabs, and since then, 0 fight back from the Valks themselves.
I mean, that one, it seemed like they started things off the way they wanted. Specifically, they finally killed Scream. They stopped him. He got into the back line, and they slowed him down a little bit. Did not end up, I think, matching where the Valkyries wanted it to be, and that maybe describes that entire game. Nothing ended up the way they wanted it to be. I mean, 2 minutes in, first blood, right? That was when that happened. And from that minute to 26 at the very end, they did not have any sort of control there. A couple of good fights from the Valkyries. Gives some promise, but we won't be seeing them here in a post-game interview. Instead, the Scarabs take this set 2-0. We'll kick it to a quick break and be right back.
The Solar Scarabs who brought us here into game number 3 after a win in game 2, and it's the Solar Scarabs who find the victory here in game number 3 up against the Valhalla Valkyries. They keep the Valkyries franchise losing streak going, and they're not going to be the ones who end up taking the L on this one. Solar Scarabs impressive performance out here, but I think in game 3, a lot of this one can come down to Baronic just kind of popped off Trelly.
Yeah, it seemed like those through space and times were clutch, and the unstable vortexes were also clutch. There's a lot of Janus damage and a lot of kills being thrown the way of the mid laner. I think 11 or 12. There was a lot.
Too many.
Yeah, too many to count at that point. It was pretty much a highlight reel at that point of Baronic's Janus.
Yeah, I mean you can probably throw just about most of these into your highlight reel on your compilation video out there. So Baronic, you can go back and find some replays here for yourself. But a lot of it started over into that mid lane fight when we saw Gamma rotating over, didn't have that ultimate inbound, was able to credit himself to at least to an assist or that kill at the very beginning of the game. That then escalates him and Scream to hit 5 first. And from that point on, after that first little skirmish there, the Valkyries were just not able to fight back.
Yeah, it really seemed like Inbound got off to a strong start with this Ama support, something that we didn't really expect. Obviously, we thought the possibility was there. Of course, the auras are always going to be beneficial, but the silenced against the Ares Fire early game ended up being a pretty solid counter matchup to get them ahead in that lane. And then, yeah, Inbound was able to come mid lane and just start making waves there. And again, Baronic on this Janus pick, you're going to see more and more of these kills because they were so impactful.
And maybe we'll see more and more of these bans on this god specifically as the season starts going on. A 16.5 KDA to end things out. A triple kill at the end of the game, coupled with a double kill out of Stewart there. So a nice full house for the carries to round out game number 3. One of the longer games of the set, but saying that, I mean, we're only 26 minutes in compared to some of the more long-winded matches that we had earlier on. Here you can see actually that quadra kill being stolen right at the tail end there.
Yeah, can you
by
believe
Stewart.
that?
I can't believe that, man. That Portal is the secure out there, and then you maybe need the one more auto, and Stewart just disrespected and took that away.
Yeah, there's some argument to be made that he was confirming the kill, but that late into the game when you know you're about to end, Stewart knew exactly what he was doing, and he said, you know what, I don't want to make Baronic, I don't want to inflate his ego too much, obviously giving him the quadra, that'll be a little bit too much, so we're just going to let him have the triple kill, I get the double kill, then we share the glory, that sort of thing.
Yeah, we did have a little bit of pushback from the Valkyries at the tail ends and on those couple of those Phoenix defenses there, but at the end of the day, it was the Solar Scarabs who come out on top, and a lot of that in Game 3 with the help of their mid laners. So we got Baronic standing by for our post-game interview to talk to him. First off, congrats on your win here up against the Valhalla Valkyries. When we had the whole like fantasy draft thing go, you saw all the rosters through, and you put out a little tweet immediately after in response. What was the quote on that tweet? It was like
what was it exactly?
I think it was like if you sleep on me, I'll tuck him in. Was that what was going through your head here in this game?
It wasn't a response to the fantasy drafts.
Oh,
it was both just an ironic tweet and just for fun, but I mean, hey, it still applies.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely showed out here. I mean, what would you say to those out there maybe who are still kind of doubting the Scarabs? I mean, coming into the end of the season last year, there was a lot of doubt up against the Scarabs. Is this team going to be able to make a Worlds run? Is this team going to be here in Season 9? What would you say to those people out there right now?
I knew it was we were going to have the same amount of doubters as last year. I think we're going to have a lot to work with a brand new solo laner and Scary, taking a little break and everything. But I think at the end of the year, we're going to be, close to that, maybe even better than, last year's Worlds, I'd assume. I think so.
Yeah. A little bit of a rough start onto your week, but a nice one to close it out here. Baronic, congratulations on the win. I'll just get back with the team to celebrate. Thanks for taking time for the interview.
Thanks.
Just some fun out here. It's actually funny because we were talking about, like, man, was that actually in response to the tweet, or was he actually just like putting that out there as a cool tweet? Either way, still applies here. An impressive Game 3 out of Baronic, impressive set all the way through here for the Scarabs.
Yeah, I mean, he just looked great on the pick, obviously. And either way, like you said, there's going to be doubters no matter what, but the Scarabs look solid there nonetheless, and I think they are going to continue to improve this year, as are the Valhalla Valkyries as well. Again, rookies to the league, and they're going to have to go through some growing pains, as we mentioned a little bit ago.
Well, our first set is now done, a 2-1 to the Solar Scarabs, and next up we have the Tartarus Titans up against the Jade Dragons, and then to close out our triple-header SPL weekend, we've got the Atlantis Leviathans, and the Oni Warriors will be our third and final set of the day. But with that Titans and the Dragons, this will be our first look at the Tartarus Titans so far this weekend. We got to see what they were able to do up against the Leviathans during our kickoff tournament that happened previously. I'm not going to say it wasn't a close set out there between the two of them. Then again, neither of those teams really taking it to the top level. We saw what the Dragons were able to get earlier on up against the Solar Scarabs. How do you think this matchup's going to kind of go here, Trelly?
I mean, this is an interesting one for sure. It really just depends on who shows up to play right now. I mean, that's the thing. All of these teams look so solid, and I think PBM did just tweet out something a little bit harder to decipher, but basically it translated to this. The worst team in the league and the best team in the league. It used to be about this far apart, but this season it's very close, and that's just to show the competition of the SPL right now. I mean, the gap between the worst and the best team in the league, it's not that far.
We'll have to see how the Dragons can square up with the Tartarus Titans. That's going to be coming up right after this.